Okay.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Citizen statements. If there's someone in this room that wants to talk on something that doesn't pertain to what's on the agenda, you can talk now, but I doubt if there is, but we can check. Is there somebody here that wants to talk on something other than what's on the agenda tonight? Okay. Otherwise, welcome everybody. It's kind of a crowded room. We even got a couple old board members on here. Showed up. I think they just missed us. All right, the first order of business is discuss Menominee Park Shoreline Restoration Project. Great.
Yep, I will kick it off, and I don't know if Mr. Mitchell is in the room. I haven't seen him walk in yet because he was going to be doing a presentation for us, so I'll take up a little bit of time, and hopefully he can make it here. Essentially, what this item on the agenda is, back in 2012, when the Menominee Park Master Plan was approved, there was considerable discussion regarding prairie plantings and native plantings to be included or not to be included in the Menominee Park Master Plan. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to read from that document. Again, it's Menominee Park Master Plan, approved November 20th, 2012 by the Common Council. I'm just going to read real quickly through here. As far as the master plan, final concept plan, in February 2010, a proposal by members of the Sustainability Advisory Board was provided to install a shoreland demonstration area at the base of Ames Point with the intent to possibly expand this area along the entire Millers Bay as funding became available. The Sustainability Advisory Board also included support of additional naturalized plantings of non-shoreland areas within Menominee Park. In the fall of 2011, volunteers planted the initial site, and a second planting was to occur in the spring of 2012. The Advisory Park Board supports working with volunteer and or friends groups to maintain the existing demonstration area. Considerable discussion took place throughout the master plan process regarding the plantings and potential expansion of planting areas. The Advisory Park Board moved that the demonstration project will be evaluated after 3 growing seasons. In the fall of 2014, the demonstration area will be evaluated on several factors, including aesthetics, maintenance, costs, public support or non-support, additional comments, etc. In the fall of 2014, the Advisory Park Board will move on including or not including future naturalized planting areas within Menominee Park or along its shoreline. As the Park Board has received in their packet was a proposal from Mr. Justin Mitchell and the Shoreline Management Group.
Justin did just walk in.
Okay. So you should have received a copy of that. What Justin and the committee are calling a 5-year plan, 2014 to 2019. Includes items for existing management of the demonstration area at Ames Point, including some areas that they would like to expand and do some further shoreline restoration plantings. Justin, do you want to come forward and we'll get your presentation set up when you are ready? So what we have for this evening is, again, for the Parks Board to weigh in on the management plan that Justin has put together, as well as the potential expansion of some of the areas that he's looking at.
I do apologize for the delay. I'm on the day-by-day warming shelter board. We have our meeting at 5, and the shelter opens this week. So I cut out as soon as I could. I apologize.
Also included in your packet, and for members of the public, we have received a number of emails as well as letters, both in support and opposed to expanding the plantings. And I'm sure that the board and the chair will give the citizens opportunity as we're discussing this item, to provide your input and your thoughts as well. So, Justin, I kind of gave him just a briefing where we're at and why we're here. I read the summary from the Menominee Park Master Plan on why we're here.
Perfect.
And I'll turn it over to you.
So I'm not going to duplicate any information that we covered last month. Last month was to get everybody caught up to kind of where we, up to current day. So it's to set the stage for what we're proposing here, which is a 5-year management plan. So the topics that we're going to cover, and I'm going to go through this as brief as I can here for everybody, is why do we have a plan? Where did that come from? Why, and why is it 5 years? I think those are both valid questions. Talk about one of the addendums to the plan based on a follow-up from our last meeting. Maintenance commitments of the group, site development goals, provides a timeline, briefly goes over partners in support, and then a summary. So why a plan? Largely, our organization, our group, needed a plan, something to follow, something to detail, to provide as a guide for our annual work that we do. The plan kind of consolidates all of the background information, how we got to where we were, and that's important to keep up on. It provides the Parks Board and the department with a formal commitment to management of the installations. That's a genuine concern. If you're going to have individuals doing something, is there a long-term commitment to that? And then again, emphasize that throughout the process, it's important to be transparent about our goals and objectives, and the plan details exactly what our goals and objectives are. Why 5 years? Largely, it encompasses some of the planned installations that the committee and the Menominee South Neighborhood Association were looking to pursue. It's a commitment to funders. It is a challenge to solicit funding on a year-to-year basis. Funders typically like to see a plan. It demonstrates, again, long-term commitment to the city. Provides volunteers and partner organizations with a timeline. We do partnering with school districts, and typically they're going to want to see a plan of exactly what we're looking to do. And then it also provides clarity for neighbors regarding developments and the goals. Again, a group of comprising over a dozen community organizations with hundreds of members is committed to providing hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars to help the Oshkosh Parks Department address the findings of the department-sanctioned Ontario study, which called for shoreline restoration. I believe many of the board members were on the board at that time as well. The height transplant, I just wanted to go over, there seemed to be a little lack of clarity as to how plants got there, right? So we raised funds, whether it be through the Southwest Rotary, they provided $3,500. Winnebago County provided $2,000. Local churches provided funding. Local groups such as the Audubon provided funding. And members, neighbors and members contributed funding. The seed was purchased with this funding, but the purchase was orchestrated by city staff. The seed listing, which is in the actual plan, listed only plants that are 1 to 5 feet. Plants such as rosinweed, cut plant, and prairie dock were not on the seed list of what we purchased. So they were there, obviously, because those plants grew, but they weren't plants that we are aware of that were there. And we weren't aware of them until this year. Those plants really matured this year. Mid to early summer, we identified the cut plant, which is the tallest. It grows 8 to 10 feet tall. So we have the picture there, and you guys saw this last time. We removed those. Those were the tallest of the tallest. And then we have a commitment. That's in the addendum to the plan, a commitment to remove all other plants that grow in excess of 5 feet in the 2015 season. And this is from the plan with the opportunity of an alternative location to transplant these 3 tall species in the spring of 2015. The committee agrees to move these taller plants from the established Ames Point bed and to replace with smaller species such as liatris and butterfly weed. This is expected to permanently remove 85% of the plants that have the capacity to exceed 5 feet in height. I would love to be able to tell you we can remove all of them, but again, plants go to seed, and so the next paragraph talks about continual monitoring to identify additional species that have been missed. They can be trimmed down, they can be transplanted. We can do it mid to late 2015, we can do it in 2016. But again, the initial moving of the plants is expected to take care of about 85% of the plants that grow in excess of 5 feet. Maintenance, part of the plan is to detail our commitment to maintenance. This is similar to other goals that the Parks Department has for maintenance of their beds. We look to commit to a minimum of 2 maintenance days per year. We've been averaging 3 to 4, but at a minimum 2 per year. Maintenance days consist of removing unwanted plants, cleaning up garbage from throughout Millers Bay, repairing any damaged areas, adding additional mulch to trails, and completing any other necessary work. As always, if Ray sends a notice that says he would like us to go out, absolutely. We have a commitment to respond to any additional requests. And then also a commitment to ensure that our work is noticed so that there's not random people going out on a random basis completing work. Site development goals. The reality is the greater the area of shore covered by restoration, the greater the benefits achieved, and the closer the community comes to achieving the goals identified by the Ontario study and the Oshkosh Comprehensive Plan. So our goals are expansion of the restoration site consistent with city goals, and expansion in areas only by non-residential neighbors. So again, in the plan, if you look at it, there is absolutely no reference to any expansion in front of any residential neighbors. The expansion area here for site development, there's a location between the water treatment facility and Lake Winnebago. I'm sorry, let me back up. This is the first expansion site, the Menominee South Neighborhood Association area. You'll see in your addendum the Menominee South Neighborhood Association, which is the area between Washington and Irving from the lake to the railroad tracks. That neighborhood association signed on and gave a letter of support for the plan, which references their commitment. They've identified this as a goal of the neighborhood, something they want to work on. Including in that reference is volunteer time and funding. The area is located between the lake and the water treatment facility. It has been reviewed by Public Works staff as well as the Stormwater Utility Board, and it obtained their support.
How many people do you have in the Menominee South Neighborhood Association?
There's a steering committee, I want to say, of 10 people, and we had about 110 at our neighborhood night out.
Okay.
First ever.
I believe it is the newest, one of the newest neighborhood associations. No residential neighbor views are involved in that. And I know there was a question about where that would be. And so I did provide a map here. It's a strategic location along parking on Lakeshore Drive, maintaining distance from both the waters and the beach. So in recognition that at some point the beach may be reworked, it wouldn't make sense for us to get too close to the beach. And in recognition that the waters may not want to have native flowers in their backyard, we would maintain a solid distance from there as well. So you'll see the side south of the boat launch goes about halfway, and all of that area is along parking, where the parking gets pretty close to the lake, and similar on the north side of the launch.
That's not a boat launch.
No, it's not a boat launch.
Mandy,
It's not-
do you want to grab me my water? Right. That's what the ramp. Regardless of the word, you know what I'm referring to. It's the ramp right there.
Is that on the very is that Scherzer Charles Scherzer Park then?
Yes, on the far south.
What's the limit of, is that all considered Scherzer Park then, up to, basically up to Menominee, or?
No, but it's all considered parkland throughout that area. We maintain that entire area.
Charles Scher's monument area.
Okay. This is a picture of that specific area. The next expansion is the Ames Point North expansion. As you recall, the initial approval of the installation included a region that spanned approximately, I want to say, about 15,000 square feet. We only did about 75% of what the Parks Board authorized. The main limitation was simply funding. And we also didn't have an established seed bed to harvest seed from for future expansions. So the 25% that was not done is on the northeast end, as you can see there in red. It's about 150 feet of shore frontage. It's a secluded area. There's substantial tree blocking there. There's a road there. The proposed expansion would include a 10-foot wide mulch path between the existing bed and the new one. As it's been referenced that some individuals would like additional access. And then again, we would include a pathway, which in 2015 we are looking to kind of strengthen the existing pathway in the other bed, in that we'll need more mulch, and when we are transplanting the plants from the current walkway, we'll have a place to go hopefully with them. This gives you a picture of that spot right now. As you can see, it was actually treated initially, and so what grew back is not grass. It's kind of unwanted plants that are there, and so this is something that we would look to transition into a healthy shoreline. And then the last location is the pump station. That is directly across from Webster Stanley. And the pump station moves untreated stormwater into the lake. The area surrounding the outlet is an excellent area for restoration. Includes about 100 feet we would look at on the south side and another 60 feet on the north side, spanning a depth of about 20 feet or so. No trails would be incorporated into this area to align with the city's interest to not encourage individuals to utilize the area. This was also reviewed by Public Works staff as well as the Stormwater Utility Board. You can get an idea here of where that would be. And certainly, there's more room on the south side that wouldn't impact, the views of residential neighbors. And Webster Stanley is a welcome partner for this. Okay. This gives you a photo view of that specific location. The plan includes a timeline. I bolded the things that are of main interest, I believe, to your board. The timeline, again, as this plan serves our committee's purposes, the timeline includes things like our plant sale, maintenance days and whatnot. But the main things for you are our proposals for the expansion dates. And, of course, all of this is contingent on funding. If we don't successfully raise the funds, an installation at the pump station obviously isn't possible. But this does give you a time frame. And this is all in the plan that you have. Let's conclude then with the idea is that we would review and put together another 5-year management plan It's a brief review of the partners. I'm not going to go over what they all had to say. You guys have it. But UW Oshkosh, Winnebago Lakes Council, Representative Hintz, and again, the main reason why I asked him if he would be willing to provide a letter of support is because he was involved in the initial securing of funding for the Ontario study. Growing Oshkosh, Oshkosh Bird Fest, which the city is a partner of, Oshkosh Garden Club, Winnebago Audubon, CNRA, Wild Ones, the Oshkosh Sustainability Advisory Board, the Oshkosh Stormwater Utility Board, League of Women Voters, Winnebago County, Menominee South Neighborhood Association. Also got an email support that I'm guessing went out to you guys from Tim Hoyman, who did the initial Ontario study. What he states is since the initial study was completed, the EPA released a report stating that natural shoreline destruction was found to be the greatest factor degrading our lakes within the state of Wisconsin. Restoring shorelines to a more natural condition works to reverse the impact. Also comments that he was pleased to see that the city had gone in the right direction, allowing restoration to occur, that it sets an excellent example for area residents, Winnebago shoreline property owners, and area municipalities by moving forward. He's the one that actually did the study. Just going to go over 3 key statements that I pulled from the supporting letters. From Tom Davies, the director of the Winnebago County Land and Water Conservation Department. The Menominee Park Shoreline Restoration Project is currently a healthy, diverse, and well-established native shoreline restoration. We see this as an opportunity to create an educational and environmentally positive restoration project in an urbanized setting and simultaneously improve water quality. From the Winnebago Lakes Council, of which the city is a partner. The Winnebago Lakes Council fully supports the efforts to improve this waterfront resource, and we are pleased to see that the project has fulfilled every expectation. Lastly, from the Stormwater Utility Board, which the work was completed by Maureen Muldoon and in partnership with James Robbie and Stephen Godey and board members. Stormwater Utility Board supports the Menominee Park Shoreline Restoration 5-year plan as a valuable step in improving the city's shoreline management and in helping the city comply with the public education outreach, public involvement, participation, and erosion runoff control requirements of the DNR stormwater discharge permit. The current installation has demonstrated great success in establishing a strong density and diversity of native plant life, which together maximizes the installation's benefits. The additional proposed installations will further the capacity to protect and improve our local waters. So there's one thing that the experts with knowledge of water resource management and shoreline management best practices unanimously agree on. Well, there's 3 things: that the Menominee Park setting is an excellent location for restoration, that restoration will improve water quality and the local environment, and that the existing installation is a healthy success. Summary of the 5-year plan, what I view are the main provisions relevant. It serves as a guiding document for the Friends of Menominee Park Shoreline Committee. It will assist the committee with acquiring funding support, confirms commitment of committee as a long-term partner of the Parks Department, details commitment to management of installations and responsiveness to city requests, commits to work beginning in 2015 to transplant the tallest species out of Ames Point installation, outlines 2 new installation sites, the pump station and the Menominee South Neighborhood Association plot, affirms no planned installations by residential neighbors, provides a timeline for educational partners, and demonstrates responsiveness and follow-through of the city. That's all I have.
If you can remind citizens, give their name and address.
Any board members have any questions?
I do. All of your referral letters or reference letters for this cite the success of this, and I just want to know what the criteria is or why it's being called successful.
Sure. And that was covered over last meeting, but we can go over it again. So some of the indicators for a healthy shoreline restoration would include a density of a diversity of plants. So you don't just want one species, you want a good diversity of plants. Native is preferred. They're adapted for the local community, the local environment, and also for species that would maybe be utilizing the area. You want a plant mix that will have extremely deep roots, as the deep root systems help to allow water infiltration. They also are better at catching runoff as well as absorbing nutrients that, if they get into the water, would become basically a fertilizer for unwanted algae growth and whatnot. The size, the goal is 35 feet back. The DNR suggests that a 35-foot setback is a comprehensive shoreline restoration that fully captures the runoff and has the ability to impact water quality. That said, shorter distances can have an impact, just not to the extent that a 35-foot setback would have.
I'm talking in terms of success, like how are you measuring the water quality? Like, I don't know if it's gallons of water that's contained. When I walk the site out there, and it seems like water quality seems to be driving the majority of this conversation. I look, and the elevation where we've got these things seems higher than the elevation further in. So I personally am not sure if water quality issues are really the factor there, given the fact that appears to be higher than all of the land.
Sure. Appreciate the question. I'm going to defer to the people who really know what they're talking about. So they've already told you. So you have an aquatic biologist who has expressly stated this will improve water quality. You have the Winnebago Land and Water Conservation Department, who funds these projects throughout the county. They have confirmed this is a success and it improves water quality. So you can say, I'm not sure if it does, but the people who know what they're talking about say it does.
You talk about runoff. What are you concerned about the runoff?
What am I concerned about runoff?
Yeah. So
I'll give you one example. So let's say that you have 25 geese hanging out next to the water. You know what geese do. And then you have a standard Oshkosh rainfall. And good chance that geese waste either goes on the surface into the water, or as Bill was suggesting, it maybe doesn't flow that way, but it infiltrates, and then it gets into the water system. So by having the shoreline restoration, you have a buffer zone that prevents any of that sort of thing from happening. So it captures any sort of rainwater runoff, and, conceivably, as the Ontario study recommended, anywhere that you have an impervious surface relatively close, you want to have that buffer zone.
So just the geese, species is all you're worried about.
Well,
We
that's
don't use chemicals in the park, correct?
Correct. We don't fertilize.
We don't fertilize. We don't use chemicals in the park. So
well. I mean, I would suggest that's not. It's not exactly true that you don't use chemical. We have a
Fertilizers. We don't fertilize.
Right.
they don't fertilize.
Sure. So, and nowhere in the plan anywhere or in any language that we've ever suggested does it say that fertilizers of the chemical nature are
That's
flowing in.
runoff, and that's sometimes you.
Well, sure. Goose poop is a fertilizer. Clippings of your lawn. The city has a policy. You can't have your grass that you cut go into the street because it gets into the stormwater sewer, flows into the water, and promotes algae growth. So the same thing, right? You have your grass that you're mowing. The existing bed has no capacity to infiltrate to serve as a buffer of anything. You saw last month. You both were there. The root system is about 1/130th, 1/100th of the root system of the bed that we would have established. I mean, I appreciate the line of questioning, and I do fully admit I work for the housing authority, right? I am not a biologist. However, that is one of the reasons why we solicited the expert background to provide. You guys, I get that you can question that, but the information is all in front of you. In the initial project, the DNR last month went over. The DNR gave a notice of support. You have the Land and Water Conservation Department, you have the Winnebago Lakes Council, you have the guy who you paid to do a study of the health of the bay. I mean, that's pretty comprehensive.
I want to go back to one.
I don't want to get too far
Okay,
into this
okay.
with the board. I still want to get citizen statements before. I just wondered if you had any specific
We can
questions.
come back and ask
We can
Justin
come back
questions.
and ask.
Well,
them.
I just want to go back to the goose thing. I was out there again today, and my concern is that it's concentrating the geese in the areas, you know, I mean, those geese are smart, you know, they're concentrating. Is this going to move to concentrate those geese in other areas? I mean, it's pushing them out of a 35 by 200 foot area, but I mean, it's a pretty big park. So I'm wondering if we're concentrating more goose species that is going to make it into the lake.
We would love to have the geese pushed back into that large unused field. So where we have the current bed, you have the path, you have a largely unused field that is you know, pretty damp a large portion of the year. That would be a great location. There are 60 feet of filtration before that waste flows in. I get the idea is you're saying, well, what if we redo the whole park? I mean, we don't get municipal funding for this. We you know, rely on donations of $25, right? The Garden Club told me that they sent in $300. Maybe you got it. It's not conceivable. And you have it in the presentation here. There's no goal to do any, you know, beyond what we have in 5 years. Further, in the plan, it does reference that we don't expect any sort of restoration development in front of residential neighbors in the next 10 years, right? So.
Okay. Now we'll take some citizen statements. Now, I remind you, it's 5 minutes. Let's not get too windy about it. When you come up, give your name, address, and the other thing I'd like to say is we have a lot of people here. Now, I don't want 20 people coming up saying the same thing. So just kind of, you know, if you got something different, we'll sit here all night and listen to
I'll
you.
go up there and.
But, yeah, but I'd rather have you just kind of see what you're going to say, listen to the person in front of you, and if it's exactly the same thing, you want to get up and say, I agree, that's fine, or raise your hand. But let's not hear 20 people say exactly the same. But we will sit here all night and listen to you. So if you want to get up and let's have some citizen statements, when we're done with that, the board will discuss this some more, and we'll come up with our recommendation.
Like that, it's a 4.5 hour.
Yes. No, come up to the. We gotta get you on TV. We gotta get you on TV.
My name is Cheryl Root. I live at 610 West Capitol Drive in Appleton, Wisconsin. You might kind of wonder why I'm here, but, you know, Lake Winnebago is a resource, a natural resource that is here for everybody in the region, not just Oshkosh, but everybody in northeast Wisconsin. And I applaud these people on the amount of work that they have done, the research, the planning, you know, the sweat, to basically try to restore this lake, because what they're doing is positive. You know, and it's a fact that native plants help. Shoreline restoration is one of the #1 things in helping restore lakes. And Lake Winnebago has a problem with the algae bloom and the runoff and everything else. And so hopefully they're making a dent, and the researchers support that, yes, they have had, you know, success in helping the lake. So I would hope that, you know, support them, and so that they can move forward, and more of this can be done, because we have to change our mentality about land and property. Short mown grass is not beneficial. It's kind of like green concrete, and we need to help the environment and not just purify water, but also insects, birds, and other wildlife are going to be positive. Plus people, too, and enjoying the beauty that is brought to an area. Thank you.
I have a question for you. Now you're from Appleton.
Yes.
What is your Parks Department doing about this in the parks?
I don't know.
They're not,
for
they're
sure
not.
what they're-
There you go.
There you go. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
we are doing a lot, with the wild ones too, is up in Enum and Asha. We're trying to do a lot, getting people to change and restore habitat and put in native plantings in urban settings. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jan?
I'm Beck, and I live at 1332 Menominee Drive. And first of all, I would like to thank the Parks Department for all the hard work that they do in Menominee Park and Miller's Bay, and the grass and trim along the shoreline, and it really does look beautiful. Recently, the Parks Board sent out a survey to all the neighboring families in that area, and they asked the neighbors and the community in that area questions. One of the questions was, what's the most liked park feature? 50% said the trails. That was the highest. People love those trails through Menominee Park, along Miller's Bay, and the thing they love about it is you can walk right next to the shore, you can see the beautiful water connected to the lake, and it's beautiful. They love it. The second question they asked was, what was the most used park feature? Guess what it was? The trails right along the shoreline. 60% responded saying that was the most used. I live in the area, and on any given weekend, beautiful weekends, you can see hundreds of people walking along the water, walking and riding their bikes, rollerblading. They want to be as close to that water as they can. And the great thing about that trail through Menominee Park and Miller's Bay is that it's probably the only area in Oshkosh where you can see the water unobstructed. You can be so close. It's so special. We really have a jewel here. We have the Leon's Loop. People that get their ice cream cones at Leon's, and they drive along there. They want to see the water. And when you have these plants that are huge and very dense, you cannot see the water from your car or along the path of the trail. So I'd like to also bring up another point is that right now we have these plantings that personally are not attractive, very dense, they look like weeds, and they're right along Oaks Trail there. And a lot of people, older people and handicapped people drive their cars right up to Oaks Trail. It's the only place that you can drive really just a few feet from the water. They park the car and walk to the shoreline. You can't do that now because you've got these plants that way up here blocking the area. So I am definitely opposed to this restoration project. It's just not attractive. I think we need to protect this jewel that we have in Oshkosh. Is very special, and I would like to, personally, I'd like to see it moved, and if it could be maybe you can put it in County Park or somewhere, but not along the shoreline when it's such a beautiful area there. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Yes?
Hi, Chris Studeman, 1906 Menominee Drive. Out of respect for your comment about not repeating, I couldn't say it any better than she just did. I just want to state as a resident right across from there, I would challenge the comment that it doesn't restrict any neighbor view. I can't see the water any longer. Certainly that's going to have impact on property values. Maybe some people say, that's your problem, Chris. It is to some degree. But everybody in this room is smart enough to know any property value diminished in the city hurts everyone involved. So I'd respectfully ask you to vote against expanding this. I also don't feel like the commitment for maintenance is there. I stroll by there almost daily. Walked through there this evening just to take another look at it, see if all the trash in there has been cleaned up, and it hasn't been. I see it on a regular basis. So I'd be concerned about the commitment on maintenance. because it hasn't been proven to be done so to this point. So, and everything else Jan said is part of the reason I'd respectfully ask you to vote against expanding it. I'd even like to see it removed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura Dowdy. I live at 543 Hazel Street. That portion of the park with the restoration is one of my family's favorite places to go visit. We ride our bikes that way on purpose to see that, to see how it transforms through the course of the year. I have a degree in environmental education. I use that with my son. We talk about all kinds of things, not just about the environment, but about science and how things are connected and taking care of the community. I too believe that Lake Winnebago is a wonderful, beautiful jewel we need to protect. That includes the water quality to me. I don't want to live next to a lake with huge algae blooms and problems with water quality. Who wants to look out and see that? And as to your questions about runoff, I have no expertise in what's happening here in Lake Winnebago, but I've taught water quality with kids. I've taught about runoff. It's not just goose poop. People drive their cars through there. People fertilize their lawns. People wash their cars. Things run off to the lake from more than just 50 feet back from it. You've got to think about what's coming from 100, 200, 300 feet. It's all interconnected. And having that buffer zone to protect that beautiful jewel of a lake and the water quality there so that everyone can enjoy all different kinds of aspects that provides to the entire community, I think is really important. Our family would be very sad to see it go. And I think the expansion to be across from Webster Stanley is an amazing opportunity to connect the students to their local environment, their local heritage, their local history. And that partnership could be an amazing opportunity to expand education here in Oshkosh. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ann Ruby. I live at 1314 East Custer Avenue. I'd like to repeat everything that Laura just said without repeating it.
Thank you.
I live very close to Menominee Park with a small but desirable view of the water. My family and I use the northern part of the shoreline of Menominee Park on a regular basis. I speak tonight in support of the shoreline restoration project. I represent myself and my church as a member of the First Congregational Church Benevolence Committee, who has supported financially for expansion of the project. I appreciate the learning opportunity that it provides for myself and for my two children. I have limited time to transport them to other similar environments, such as the Heckrot Nature Center in Menasha, where they have educational information. I don't have time to go anywhere else with my kids. I go right there because I really love and appreciate it. I have 4 pages and I'm only going to hit the highlights. I'll email you the rest. I think we should consider the richness and preservation and deepening of species biodiversity as an asset with equal to or more weight than the idea of a manicured, neat landscape. I believe we have a moral, religious, and ethical obligation to do so. And in line with that, I promoted the idea that my church support the shoreline restoration project last year. I, along with all the voting members of First Congregational Church Benevolence Ministry that night, unanimously voted to financially support the existing maintenance and expansion of the natural shoreline restoration project for $500. So we do hope to see that expand. We, along with many other individuals and groups, have donated funds and our time for this cause for the reasons that Justin and Cheryl Root and Laura explained tonight. I really appreciate the aroma. I don't know if anybody mentioned the aroma. If you walk by it several months out of the year, it smells lovely. Before that was in place, what you would smell is the stench of algae. And I've been there both years, and I can tell you that it's so much nicer. It's a place where I can walk and relax, and I take a deep breath, and I really enjoy it. It's beautiful and a pleasant surprise. In comment on the unobstructed view, I appreciate the view from the prairie area, from the natural vegetation area, and I appreciate the view from the lawn area. I appreciate both views and the variety that it provides, and I also appreciate that future expansion within the next 10 years will be focused on areas where it won't create a residential block of the view from their home, not their view of the lake, but the view from their home. And I would disagree that one can't see the water. One can see the water. I'm not the tallest person in the city, and I can see it just fine. Another parking lot. It's not the only parking lot in Menominee Park. There's a large parking lot to the north of the Hazel Street entrance. There's a street that allows parking on the south end of Menominee Park, so it's not the only view of the water from a car. And there is trash in the park everywhere. I go there with a bag sometimes with my child so that I can help pick up trash. Because of Justin's efforts and everybody else who's involved in the committee, that park may be cleaner than it is traditionally. He has organized, I think, 1 or 2 events every year with multiple people to help pick up that area, and that expands to the rest of the shoreline. So I appreciate your time, and thanks for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Bob Stelzer. I live at 1122 Merritt, and I'm a professor in the Department of Biology at UW Oshkosh. And I'm a professor of aquatic ecology. I'm an expert on aquatic ecology. And I can tell you that there are hundreds of studies, hundreds of scientific studies that support the role of native plant communities in improving water quality near shorelines. If it's near wetlands, if it's near streams, if it's near lakes, this has been shown over and over again to improve the water quality by as Justin and others have mentioned, by acting as a buffer. These plants take up nutrients. They take up nutrients from one form, and they transfer those nutrients to another form. And I'm supporting this restoration effort both as a citizen that lives near the park, but also as a scientist. Lake Winnebago is a jewel. It supports a $100 million fishery. Property values, I would argue, depend on a clean Lake Winnebago. You might be familiar with what happened this summer in Toledo. Toledo gets its water, the city of Toledo gets its water from Lake Erie, and for a 3-day period this summer, the water supply of Toledo was completely shut down. Lake Erie is similar in many ways to Lake Winnebago. It's a shallow lake. It's a eutrophic lake that has a lot of nutrients and receives a lot of algal blooms. It's not unheard of that could happen right here in Oshkosh. Of course, we get our water from Lake Winnebago. And I also would point out, this next comment is more of a citizen. I appreciate the multiple use. I think you guys do a really nice job managing our parks and promoting multiple uses. You can play softball in the parks. You can hike. You can rollerblade. You can play soccer. Some people like to go to the park and watch birds and look at the plants that are planted at this restoration site. So I strongly think that this shoreline restoration not only improves the water quality of Lake Winnebago, but it also promotes the spirit of multiple uses that I think a lot of us in Oshkosh appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question. Yes, for you. Will we be able to see measurable success with water quality with this amount of restoration?
Well, so you have to understand. Of course, Lake Winnebago is a very large system. And the amount of shoreline that is being restored is just a fraction of probably 0.1% of the entire shoreline of Lake Winnebago. I think it's a start. I think it would be unrealistic to think that a 100-foot patch here, a 100-foot patch here would have a measurable impact, particularly on the water in the lake proper. It might have some localized effects. I think the most encouraging thing is it's a start. A couple of people mentioned the educational role of this. I think we need more shoreline plantings around the lake. A small little segment here, is it going to have a major impact on the water quality? Probably not. But it's certainly a start, and you have to start someplace, I believe. Yes.
I have a question. Do you think that it's been a long time since I've had hydrology in college, but do you think the soil type in Oshkosh or in that area has considerations on the infiltration effect?
Well, because the soil, I'm not a soil scientist by any means, but the soil is clay in Winnebago County, and so that tends to promote runoff rather than infiltration. So, the plants then have an ability to intercept soil particles. They have an ability to intercept some of this water that's running off. Sure, some will infiltrate, but because the soil is clay, there will be a lot of sort of shear flow across the surface. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No, you're standing.
You're next.
Hi, my name is Michelle Bogdan-Metzel, and I live at 719 West 6th Avenue here in Oshkosh. I have been a volunteer from the initial planting to current maintenance efforts. I do know that there are at least 2 maintenances a year, and I think it has been amazing to see the progress of the plantings during that time, but also the community that arises out of working together to do something positive for our city and our region. I think there have been some differences in opinion in the aesthetic value of the area, though overwhelmingly I've heard positive feedback, especially when we're working there. People applaud and walk by, and you'll hear, maybe 1 negative for every 3, and that's just the people walking by. Also, I think the health benefits for our region's lifeblood, Lake Winnebago, are numerous and vastly outweigh any eye of the beholder negative view that they can conceive of. I think to hamper, God forbid, remove these plantings would be an egregious error. I hope the health, aesthetic, economic value of having a cleaner lake to enjoy with less algae, less smell, less hazard for our children and our grandchildren to swim in, better environment for the fish that we eat, will outweigh any superficial concerns. And I hope with further education, outreach, and maintenance of the site, will grow support for our already strong support from the community. And I hope you very carefully consider these things when you make your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joe Malecki. I live at 1308 Menominee Drive. I think, I did send an email to Ms. Fitzgerald, and I think he passed it around to everyone, and I don't know if it's in the packets or not, but I'll hit on some of the highlights. I'm against further expansion of that area. And also, I was unaware that there was a pre-approved area going further to the north on there, and I'd be against expansion into that area. We attended a number of meetings a few years ago, and we had to attend, and when the decision was made to let this area mature and then go ahead and reevaluate at this time. And then we had to come to another meeting because the proponents of that area didn't like the outcome, that they needed to wait another 3 years. So we had to attend a subsequent meeting. So hopefully, regardless of the decision, we don't have to come back again because the proponents said, well, we didn't like that decision, so we need you to come back. Again, we were originally told that the areas were put in place to counteract phosphate runoffs. Members of the board at that time were even surprised that, you don't put phosphates or anything like that on the parks in order to prevent the runoff. Now we hear that, well, it'll help curb some of the goose poop that comes there. I'm not a biologist, but I believe the goose probably poop right in the lake versus just on the shoreline, so I don't see how this is going to curb that. And again, like Jan said, the area is one of our best natural resources, just the view. There are a number of naturalized areas around the city, including the Payne Arts Center. There is an area off of Witzel That appears to be a natural area that's part of Tippler School. So there are other areas in the city of Oshkosh that people can go if they want to see a quote-unquote natural area. And I do say quote-unquote because while this has been proposed as a natural area, it is not. It is a garden. It's a private garden by a select group of people who want to have a private garden along the shoreline. It is planted. It is weeded, just like any other garden. If it's natural, then let it grow. Let it be natural. Let whatever species comes in carry through the air, seed, and grow there. To me, that is a natural area. To me, what you're doing is providing a single-use purpose to another private group in the city and restricting that area from a normal use. I don't think it's, from a broader use. The one gentleman said, there's a lot of uses for the city with baseball, et cetera, in the park, baseball, et cetera. And, those are enjoyed by everyone. And if you continue to keep putting patches of single-use activity areas throughout the park, you're going to eliminate the park itself. I see the pro forces around here. I've seen communication that they've sent out to make sure, their side gets promoted well. But you, as a Parks Board, have to decide what's best for the whole city and not just a small local minority. In talking about runoff, he's heard here, well, it really isn't doing much because it really should be 35 feet back and even longer than that. And I would really ask is how much runoff is going through that area that it's actually protecting versus how much is being pumped from the pumping station when we have excess, and that's unprotected runoff, and that's getting to it from all over the city versus just in the small areas where you have this. What you have may be a nice demonstration area now, and it's a teaching area, as people have said, but please don't expand it to any other areas in the park. If they have an area there, they want to use it as a teaching area. I'd agree with Jan, is it, not necessarily on the shoreline, but other areas and not protect the beautiful view we have of the lake. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pam Elmer. I live at 1319 Lawndale Street, and I just want to say that I'm opposed to the expansion. I'm worried that after 10 years they decide that, they're going to do the whole Menominee Park from the swimming beach all the way through Ames Point on both sides to help protect this Millers Bay or Lake Winnebago. I've lived on the northeast side of Oshkosh all my life. And I've lived in the home that I'm in now for 30 years. And we probably don't pay the highest amount of taxes, but the taxes that we do pay, I believe, are for my view. In my view alone, I'm teasing, but I really, that's how I feel. That's exactly how I feel about it. I wake up in the morning and I see that sunrise, and I can't help but run out there and try to take pictures. And Jan, too, you're as short as I am. Seriously, from my house, if those were planted in a strip that I can see out of, I would go ballistic. I wouldn't be able to see what I see, the water sparkling, people using the trails and enjoying fishing there. It gets, from what I see, it looks too thick. So I just want to quick wrap this up. I took a picture of a couple that had driven into the Menominee Drive area. They weren't from around there because, why would you, if you would walk if you were going to do this. But they had, I don't know if you can see this, they had strung up a hammock and enjoyed the beautiful day, talking, reading, watching the water, whatever it was. If that was continued to expand, people wouldn't even come to the park because there wouldn't be anything to look at but the flowers, which you can see pretty much anywhere else. Why block this beautiful, magnificent view? That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
People that kind of at least have one person stand up and riff it. Hi.
If
I'm
anybody
Dave
else
Mysteric.
wants to talk, just a minute. If
Yes.
anybody else wants to talk, kind of form a line.
Or at
up
least
there.
one person, kind of whoever wants to go next, be on deck.
I'm Dave Mysteric. I have a master's degree in biology. I'm a member of Wild Ones. I'm a member of Birdfest. I'm a member of Audubon. And I'm speaking in support of this project, the Shoreline Project. One of the things that I agree, of course, with is the water quality protection that's afforded by these plantings. It's proven, and it will help. It may not help to a large degree, but every little bit helps, and I support that. Even as important as that, I want to bring up the point regarding the importance of native plants. These are native plants that are native to Wisconsin. And the insect population that depends on native plants is extremely important to the environment. The bird population that in turn depends on those insects is extremely important to the environment. People may not realize that many of our insects are dependent on native plants because it's the only plant that they can survive on. And the best example that I can give of that is the monarch butterfly. The monarch butterfly will only lay its eggs on a milkweed plant. And a milkweed plant is a native flower which is included in these plantings. If we don't have milkweeds, the monarch population, world population, will become extinct. Sources have said that in the last 4 or 5 years, the world population of monarchs has decreased by something like 80%. This is due in part to the winter land that they migrate to in Mexico, because it's a loss of habitat in Mexico, and it's also due to a loss of habitat for milkweed plants in the U.S. So it's very important to promote native plants for that reason. Another reason that I'd like to briefly bring to you is an important point to remember, and that is the history of Menominee Park. I have been a former member of this committee for over 12 years under Tom Stefani and Boyd Kramer before Tom. In those 12 years as a member of the Advisory Park Board, we developed long-term plans and we brought forth numerous improvements to Menominee Park. Improvements which included tree plantings, soccer fields, even the bike path and the walking path. Almost all of those improvements were met with objections from the neighbors, the immediate neighbors of Menominee Park. They were afraid of their visual impact. They were afraid that someone might park their car on Hazel Street or Menominee Drive and block their view of the lake. All of those improvements, most of them were approved, and they became a valuable part of Menominee Park. I'd like to see that continue. So I'm leaving with a hope that you will remember that you represent hundreds of thousands of people in Oshkosh and Winnebago County and surrounding areas. And I hope that you will think of that when you look at this project and remember that you represent the majority and not a minority of a select few of neighbors of Menominee Park. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Hi, everybody. My name is Paul Van Auken. I live at 1125 Merritt Avenue, which is directly adjacent to Menominee Park. I'm also the newly designated point person for our recently created Menominee South Neighborhood Association. So I'm here to speak briefly in support from my own point of view and also on behalf of the association in favor of expansion and approval of the 5-year plan. There have been so many positives already pointed out that I don't need to reiterate them. I would just say that personally I'm in favor of it for many reasons, including that I've enjoyed very much helping plant and do maintenance with my wife and 2 young daughters. My daughters love the place and were so proud to show me it. Last time they'd worked on it, the day I was unable to help with the work. While we were there looking at it, some young high schoolers were in there walking around who had been fishing with no luck and decided they would have more fun taking photos of birds, plants, and animals inside the planting area. It brings people together, which is something that a number of people have said, but I think it needs to be emphasized, that people of all kinds of backgrounds, the idea that this is a private garden does not make a whole lot of sense to me since it's public for anyone to enjoy. And lots of people do enjoy it. The other thing I would say is I'm also a sociologist, and we had a nationally known sociologist here on campus last week for Earth Charter Community Summit named Eric Kleinenberg, and what he was saying at the end, people are asking, what can we do about climate change? Hugely complex thing, somewhat related to this, grown from some people. But what he said applies to this too, which is what needs to happen is local efforts exactly like this, where all kinds of different people from different social classes, from different backgrounds, people who live right there, people who live in other areas of the county, come together, put their own money and sweat into it, and start working on things little by little, including things related to sustainability like the health of Lake Winnebago and Millers Bay. So I think it's a good example of that kind of work. The Neighborhood Association is excited to have some projects that are already underway that we could take on as a group to help build community within our neighborhood while doing something really positive. And we're excited about the plots that are proposed in this plan being within our boundaries. So we're very happy to continue the momentum there. And I hope you will consider all the positives from experts and regular people alike. And I hope that the opponents of the shoreline restoration will see a change in their own opinion of it and start working with us, because we need them too if we're going to make a difference. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dennis Lewandowski. I live at 1358 Menominee Drive. I spoke enough last time, so I'm not going to bore you on this time. But basically, if a gentleman like Mr. Miller stood up right now, Billy, you mind standing up for a second?
What, do I have to?
And Billy was right in the middle of those plants, you wouldn't see him.
Well, which way?
And doesn't matter, Billy, I love you each way.
He has trouble with tall grass in his yard.
So the fact of it is, this whole program started, they're going to be 2 to 3 feet high. Everyone's missing that whole point today. We're all missing that point today. I believe I do enrich your history of Menominee Park. My business partner's grandfather built that park, and that was not the idea, for sure. So with that being said, I'm going to let it go. But let's get back to, if you're going to do something different, if you're going to move forward, let's get back to the reason that you said originally, 2 to 3 feet high. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Cynthia Thorpe. I live at 1107 Merritt Avenue, and I'm here on behalf of the League of Women Voters. I know you all have a letter, and we're in support of the current project as well as the expansion. But as you know, the League of Women Voters is very involved in citizen participation. So if we weren't here to let you know face to face, I think that would be amiss. And I think that one of the best expressions of people getting together and becoming part of a community and showing citizen activity and participation in the community is what we have seen happen in the last 3 years. I do care very much about the water we drink, and the future of our children. And I am so excited when I see a group of people that will step forward with the smallest act and will pitch in to make a difference. It's easy to sit back and look, but the people here are committed. So as part of the League of Women Voters, and I was pleased that my church was here, represented with the First Congregational Church, and my neighborhood association is here. So I hope you look at this and support the experts. I can't add anything that was said. I think everyone here has been very eloquent tonight and are very strong in their beliefs on both sides. So please listen to what is in best interest for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Helen Herlash, pardon me, 1029 Hazel Street. I have some very wonderful, skillful gardeners living in my block. It makes it very hard to keep up with them. I don't even try. And many of them are growing wild plants in their yards. I'm wondering how many of the people who are advocating wild plants along the lake also are raising them in their yard. In our case, in our block, extending the wild area 60 feet north of the pumping station, it certainly would deprive many people of a view of the lake. And speaking of the lake, how much change in the lake do you think this little patch of weeds can make? It's a huge lake. There's fertilizer being dumped into it all summer long by commercial lawn care companies. They come to my neighborhood, only 1 or 2 neighbors has them. All of the others are very much more concerned and do their own minimum amount of fertilizer on their gardens. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen.
Hi, my name is Janet Wisink. I live at 7035 Mountain Road in Pickett. Obviously, I don't live in the city limits, but I was born and raised here and consider Oshkosh my home. I work here, I shop here, I play here. And my yard is full of native plants. And I think many of the people here who have already spoken could tell you that their yards are also. I am here as a representative of Winnebago Audubon Society and Oshkosh Bird Fest. Both organizations support Menominee Park Shoreline Restoration Project and the proposed 5-year plan. We are committed to continuing to volunteer for work days and providing financial assistance. Winnebago Audubon funded the educational signage at the site. Much of what I wanted to say has already been said, and said very well. Speaking is not my thing. I did want to comment on, address a couple comments that were made at the last meeting and one that was made tonight, and I think they kind of go together. The comment last meeting was that the restoration limits fishing access, which hasn't even been brought up tonight. But I certainly disagree with that. There are 13,000 feet of shoreline access in the park, and the restoration takes up only 0.5%. And what we are proposing, I'm not sure exactly what percentage, but it's not going to be more than maybe 5%. I'm just picking a number. It's not much. Along with that, there was a concern about, people walking along the trail and that their view would be ruined. Well, we're only talking about this small percentage where the flowers are. Personally, it's my favorite part. I love the flowers next to the water. And if you're standing there, yeah, maybe there's a little obstruction. You can't see totally past all of the plants. But there's 12,000 more feet of shoreline that it is visible. And you're right by the water. So I just don't know that that's really a valid excuse to get rid of such a planting as this. Dave Mysteric said a lot of what I wanted to say about the natural area, about the correlation between birds and insects. There's an interaction, and it's not just birds and insects. It goes up the food chain, including us. I just want to, because that was one of the comments, another comment that was made at the last meeting, that it doesn't look park-like. Well, this is a natural area. I think that's the best way to describe it, and that's the point. We're making an effort to restore the land and the water to its natural beauty, to make it healthy for the birds, the butterflies, the insects, native bees, all these things that are beneficial. And natural areas aren't a new concept in parks. It's becoming more and more popular. Native plantings provide the essential habitat of food and shelter for birds, butterflies, our native bees, and our other beneficial insects that are losing good habitat daily. So I guess that was, one more thing, I'm sorry. You were talking about that it's a single-use area. Well, I totally disagree. It's used by multiple groups for multiple reasons. I think baseball diamonds and soccer fields are more single-use. I have no interest in sports, but I'm not going to stand here and complain that you've got baseball diamonds and soccer fields everywhere. Yes, a lot of people use them, but a lot of people don't. They don't have the interest in sports. I don't think sometimes people think about that. Benefits of the shoreline restoration are many and diverse, and I urge you to support the plan as outlined in the document. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Karen Gibbs, and I live at 474 Winding Brook Drive in Oshkosh. I am in favor of the Menominee Park Shoreline Restoration Project. It filters stormwater runoff flowing into the lake, and it stabilizes the fragile shoreline with deep native plant roots. But I'm more excited about the experience it provides our children. Observant children will be able to see a variety of birds and insects up close and natural. We live on the west side of Oshkosh in a community that has a 15-acre natural area with a 6.5-acre pond and a half-acre prairie restoration. In addition, our home has native plants on our shoreline. Several neighbors have areas of native plantings in their yards, and others have few native plants in theirs. Last summer, when we were all concerned about the monarch butterfly decline, a neighbor and I had a group of children from our area gather once a week where they learned about the monarch. We created a monarch habitat, and they were given a plant known to attract monarchs to plant in their yard. The children raised a monarch through all the caterpillar stages, watched the chrysalis form, and then saw the adult butterfly emerge. We released the monarchs in our neighborhood. The program worked. I had neighbors calling and reporting a monarch in their yard, or a neighbor sending me a picture of a monarch caterpillar on a milkweed in her yard, and so forth. It was exciting. We didn't have a monarch program this year, but we had an unusually high number of monarchs in our neighborhood all summer long. We even had one neighbor inform a friend of his, who's a photographer, of the unusual number of monarchs in our neighborhood. It was typical for us to have 8 to 10 monarchs in our little backyard planting at a time. We now have this amazing photograph to enjoy all winter. This is one plant with monarchs enjoying the nectar on it. Songbird populations have declined in the last 50 years Songbird populations have declined at least 50% in the last 4 decades. They will enjoy all the seeds and protection this restoration provides them in our ever-changing world of cement and sterile lawns. I'm hoping that this restoration project will attract birds and butterflies as ours does, and provide Oshkosh residents with a little slice of nature in their park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Sabai. I live at 333 Saratoga Avenue here in Oshkosh. I'm a lake and wetland biologist, and as such, I'm not going to repeat everything that's been said in your letters and then here tonight, but I will go ahead and agree with them. I would add to one thing about property owners and property values associated with the lake. I live quite a distance from the lake. I live just off of Jackson Street and New York Avenue. Part of my property, and no one can tell me how much that is derived from the water quality of Lake Winnebago. Everybody's property in Oshkosh is partially responsible from Lake Winnebago. Many people choose to live here so they can go fishing. Most people can't afford to live on the lake, but they'll trailer boats. There's a number of people in my neighborhood who have boats and trailer them to the lake. So it's not just the people who have a direct view or directly live on the water that have their property values affected. The average person does too, and it also affects their the quality of their drinking water. How much does it cost to filter the drinking water before it's sent along? My other comment, I guess, has to be a dad of 3, and my wife and I, we like to take our kids to Menominee Park. We've been doing that ever since we've had children, now 13 years. We walk along the trails there. It's great. It's great to look at the water, but if you look down, there's not a lot to look at other than to try to avoid the goose poop that's in the trail. Sometimes the kids will like to go pick up a bone of a sheep's head or something. The only place to stop and not look at lawn and rock and lawn and rock and lawn and rock is the restoration there. The kids can stop there, they can explore inside the restoration, they can see flowers, they can see plants, they can see insects and birds that they wouldn't have seen at the park otherwise. And I would be in support of the current restoration, and I would just like to see that expanded to other areas. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Evelyn Moret. I live at 1231 Grant Street here in Oshkosh, and as a director of the Winnebago Audubon Society, I endorse the proposed 5-year plan because of the benefits outlined in the plan, but also the native plantings that provide habitat for the birds, the butterflies, and our native bees. Our bees specifically are reducing in numbers, and as you all know, they have to pollinate all our plants to provide food for us. These species are declining due to poisonous pesticides, herbicides, and reduction of good habitat. The restoration plantings also provide awesome educational opportunities for all ages, which everybody's talked about. And as you know, Oshkosh is a bird city, and to renew as a bird city annually, we have to continue to provide good habitat for the birds and educational opportunities for its citizens. Providing these natural areas in our parks make them public and allows the community to become aware of the birds and their needs. By providing these areas, citizens can see how beneficial they are and create natural areas in their own backyards, which people have talked about also. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody got anything different or new? No, not everything.
Well, I'm Dennis Cavanaugh, 1107 Merritt Avenue in Oshkosh. And I think a couple comments that were made tonight are very accurate. One is that the park is made up of special interests. It really is. You have the Children's Zoo. Those are all special interests. It's the community's job to blend that into the whole. And I think that's a smart decision to look at when you really are dealing with special interests in that park. I mean, otherwise you just have nothing there. But I think it's a smart thing to look at. And I'm also aware that when you look at the restoration project, I don't think anyone's trying to present that this is going to clean up Lake Winnebago. But I think it's an identified method. This is a way of doing it. It's a start. Somebody takes the first step, and you do it. And I think the other thing that I like about what the plan is laid out very clearly over 5 years of what they would like to do. There's no secret stuff about sneaking up on people on it. I think that's a healthy way of doing business. It's a healthy way of presenting something to the city. And on the other part, anyone who's walked that park and looked at the stonework, the wall between the water and the land, it's full of crap. I mean, it's weeds, it's thistles, that's an unsightly thing that's going on, and I don't have an answer for going in there and picking it out. I mean, you're not going to spray it, but I think this is an effort by the community to make some efforts moving forward. And perhaps others will pick up that this is a way of doing business in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wasn't going to speak, so I promise it'll be short. Diane Malecki at 1308 Menominee Drive, and I think there is a compromise that you can make. I think the area that was a test spot is a poor area to have tried this out because it does antagonize people, because if you aren't into natural plantings, it's ugly. I'm sorry, but we have gone there several times during the year trying to find that moment when they've told us it's going to be gorgeous, and we live right there, and I haven't seen it. You know, as far as I'm concerned, do the perimeter of Monkey Island. Everybody can look at the natural settings from across the lake, still see the water. I'm here just to tell you that lots of people pull up in front of our house, park their vehicles, and I look out always wondering, you know, who's there. And it's somebody who'll get their sandwich out and get their water or their pop out, and they're not sitting and looking at the garden. They're sitting and looking across at the sunshine coming across the lake and enjoying their lunch. And that always puts a smile on my face when I see that. The benches are full. They're looking out over the lake. I think there's a way you can do this. There's enough of the lake and enough of the shoreline that I think the process can be completed without antagonizing the people that live there, because it's such a gorgeous area, and I think it should be kept that way. Thank you.
Okay, I'll open it up to the board. Hold it. Is there anyone else wants to speak? We'll take a couple more if you want. Otherwise, this will be the last.
Hi, I'm Mary Stilley. I live at 1900 Menominee Drive, and I spoke at the last meeting. So I am not in favor of expansion, as a matter of fact. What I would like to do is I would like to see the entire area not plowed under, but blockaded, and then put mulch on top of that until it's restored back to its what it was prior. Everybody who has spoken here seems to have invested a tremendous amount of properties and wonderfulness into this strip of land. It is responsible for clean water. It is responsible for the birds. It's responsible for the butterflies. It's responsible for beauty. It's responsible for education. It is responsible for just about everything. And that may very well be, to a very minor degree. I see this every single day. The first thing I see when I wake up in the morning, I look up my window. Anybody on the park board is more than willing to come to my front window to see what I see. My rights are as valid as anybody else's rights, including the Audubon Society or Wild Ones or any professors from the university. And I think that the park board has got to take into consideration the fact that we have paid a premium price to live where we are. And when we moved in, that wasn't there. And I think that you would be quite upset if wherever you were living, somebody decided to put up a great big fence in your front yard. And by virtue of the fact of where we live, you basically have done that. You have put up a fence in my extended front yard. And not only that, but you have done that to the citizens of Oshkosh, because there is very few places that you can just casually drive by, unless you have a house on the lake, which we do not, right? And just enjoy the view. And I'm sorry to say the view of, and everybody keeps on saying garden, and I use this euphemistically, it does not look like a garden. It does look shabby. It does look as if it's a bunch of weeds. When you get up close, perhaps you can identify some flowers, but most of the flowers are muddled in with tall grasses. Black-eyed Susans that are in there are literally the size of a nickel. The echinaceas are perhaps knee-high, but the tall grasses are shoulder-high. I can stand right next to any of the tall grasses, and I'm 5 feet, 4 inches, and I cannot see over. My view is blocked. The citizens' views are blocked. And I think that this has been a mistake that needs to be corrected.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll open it up to the board. Everybody can voice their comments and discuss it from there.
Is Justin still here? Thank you. My question, doing a little research on this, and again, I'm by no means an expert. It was explained to me that it's probably a good thing to mow or burn these things off every couple of years, and it seems like the height has kind of gotten way out of control. It seems to be the big issue, I think, with everybody, and I think originally we agreed to a 2 to 3 foot height.
Forget that 3.
2 foot.
2 foot?
2.
Okay, all right, sorry.
2 or less.
2 foot, all right. I mean, do you have any plans to mow this down or burn this or keep it within the 2 foot limit?
Sure. 2 foot is really hard. Certainly not something I ever proposed, but
You weren't the one that proposed it. Our forester did.
right. The burning is probably not park friendly, and what we've been doing is the main reason to burn is to get rid of the woody growth, and so we've been trying to stay on top of that. We are planning on, we postponed our educational partnership kind of just with uncertainty of what was happening. But so we're planning on the end of October coming through and kind of doing like a seed harvest. And at that time, we're going to take down a lot of the tall growth. Mowing is not out of the question. And I'm not sure if Traxler came or not. The guy who sold us the seeds was possibly going to come. But we can certainly mow it down as well. To date, we haven't had the city do any work. I'm not sure if they would go through with the trimmers or whatnot. But
Well, I'm just saying as a matter of practice. I mean, I belong to a lot of conservationist organizations, and we burn, we mow,
Right.
we plant, So I'm not totally opposed to these things, but I just know that if you burn them off, that's typically the best. Is that accurate? I mean,
right, and again, a standard prairie. If some of these individuals have prairies, they probably do a controlled burn. We never thought that would be something we would do in the park setting. Again, the main reason is for removal of wood growth. Not, if you have a prairie and you have tall plants, usually you're excited about that, right? The plants are thriving. Again, and if I can emphasize enough. It wasn't our intention to have some of these tallest growth plants. Now, this year, even the opponents will confess, this has been the tallest year of growth, and we've had new species that weren't growing the previous year, and so we're acknowledging, that there's work that needs to be done, and we have it in there that we expect to do that work. So
what? If you're not going to go by our request to keep it at 2 feet, what do you think is a manageable height?
Sure. Most of you that might have a garden probably have a coneflower in your garden. Coneflower, purple echinacea, it's a standard. I mean, that grows 3.5 feet tall, sometimes a little bit taller. That seems to be a desired plant, right? I mean, people like that plant. I like that plant. There's a native species. That 2 to 5 foot range from our side, I think, is very reasonable. Conceivably, you get rid of some of the tallest growth plants. The others don't have to grow as vigorous. They don't, there's not that competition. Part of the challenge, just sidestep here, is we haven't had this conversation. We probably should have had this every year, right? So let's say that next year we get rid of the tallest of the tallest, all of the plants that exceed 5 feet tall. I mean, it's conceivable then that after you've weeded that out, maybe the next year we focus on, yellow coneflowers are there, right? The bulk of the plant is only about a foot tall. But, then you have a flower that's a small flower, but it grows 5 feet tall. I mean, conceivably, we could move those as well. I had some conversations with the DNR. I think maybe you did as well. They don't encourage a lot of ground disturbance, right? So you don't want to be doing an extensive amount of disturbance in any given year. And ideally, when we remove a plant, we would be replacing it with one as well. But getting it down to 2 feet, it's hard from the start. And I think that particular location is a target area for us to work to reduce the height. Again, I think we've acknowledged nobody's trying to say that it doesn't impact views, and so we're trying to take steps to minimize that. In particular, the new locations. are not by there. And somebody mentioned that if we go 60 feet up, we would be impacting views from the pump station. You saw on the map that there's no goal of going by a neighbor, right? Our goal is to go by Webster Stanley. Those areas may be appropriate for taller plants. Taller plants tend to have deeper roots. They're beneficial. So having an alternative location to move them to is not wasting plants. We might be talking about 300-400 plants, right? I mean, this isn't there's like 22,000 plants there. You figure 11,000 square feet, 2 plants a square foot is not a lot. That's a lot of plant, right? So if we have to move 400 or 500 plants, that's a good. There's value in that plant, right? You go to the plant store, you might be paying $6 a plant for that. That's a lot of money. We would love to be able to not just throw that away. Use those plants in another area in which you don't have somebody concerned from their living room window looking out.
I think from the neighbor's point of view, and I think your opposition, I think we all, and the board, I think we all had an understanding that this was going to be a 2-foot growth, and I think it's now turned into 7 feet, and I think you're kind of losing some credibility, in this pilot program. And that's my concern, that you haven't executed on that portion of your commitment to keep it at that 2-foot height.
If I can just respond, if you look at the 14 letters of support from parties from throughout the community and region, that's one counselor mentioned that's more support than he's seen for a project in a very long time. I would argue that our credibility is there, that a lot of the people who opposed it now opposed it from before anything went in. I'm not suggesting that it was our goal. Those seeds weren't in our plant mix. There's not a lot you can do, and it wasn't there last year, right? So that's a challenge, and I think we're taking steps to address it. But our credibility, the people, again, who know what they're talking about in the area of shoreline restoration, native plantings, they say it's great. It's thriving. It's a great thing.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but what I'm saying is what we agreed to as a board, and you, as the person doing this, we agreed to this 2-foot height limit. Is that accurate?
I mean, I believe you. I was not at your initial meeting, and there's no question. I'm not. Again, I hear you and I agree. I wasn't at that meeting, and 2 feet is very hard to achieve, and it really is.
Thank you,
Justin. I have a question for you. When this was part of the master plan, one of the major concerns of the board members, in fact, in my opinion, there's probably a good chance it wouldn't even been in the master plan. The height was a major concern of board members. You can go look through minutes. Board members were concerned, not that they're against the plantings. A lot of them think the plantings are fine, but the height was really important. We were led to believe that it was going to be 2 feet, and if it would have been something else, it might have not made it into the master plan. It was a really important consideration. But one thing that I'm a little don't understand is why would you buy seeds that are 1 to 5 feet when we were striving for 2 feet and you bought seeds that are 1 to 5? Sure. We're evaluating the pilot program right now.
I love Bill. Bill's a great guy. He's helped us out, given us advice. I'm going to pick on him for a second in that Bill purchased the seeds, and the reason why we went through the source that he did, which was in Omro, is that we had been quoted 5 foot a square feet, 6 foot, and from our side that was the inhibitor or the prohibitor. We weren't able to move forward with that type of cost because 10,000 square feet at $6 a square feet, that's too much. So Tom Traxler out of Omro, through partners, got connected, $1 a square foot. So that's where we got our seeds from. 2 foot was not something I was aware of. I think a lot of times when you're talking about plant height as well, you have the plant height and you have the flower height. Typically the plant is the leafy part that blocks views. The skinny flower stem, typically isn't a main blocker. So you might have most of the plants, some of the plants, a lot of them might be 2-3 feet, but then you have the taller flowers. I don't know if you have something further that you can clarify, Bill, but if you want to talk about the process of where the seeds, how we got the seeds.
So the reason we got higher seeds is you didn't have the budget, is really what it amounts to.
You get higher seed.
I mean,
The reason you didn't get the right seeds is you didn't have the money.
I would not say that. I didn't think that
Well,
we
we
got
went
the wrong
from
seeds.
$6 to $1.
Yeah,
Because $6 was we couldn't do that. You said, right?
ask Bill. I don't believe it was a variance in.
No, that wasn't the case at all, Terry.
That's what he just said.
Quality. And what he's
Well-
saying is it's not like you're getting 1/6 the quality.
When you buy your grass seed, if you don't cut it, your grass is going to grow, usually you think, oh, my grass is going to be what, 2-3 inches? If you don't cut it, it's going to be 6 feet. So and it's not the plant's fault that it grew.
Wow.
But
glad you sit next to me.
With
Don't blame the
native
person that
plant,
planted it now.
right. With native plant restoration, there is not as, and I'm sorry that our expert isn't here this evening. I was hoping he would be. But with native seeds, it isn't a certified mix like it would be in your grass seed. If you look at your grass seed bag, you'll say it's 100% certified. You're going to have probably a variation of tall fescue, red fescue, bluegrass, and all those sorts of things. But there's always that percentage that is other inert or other seed material, which you can't, sort out. When you gather native seeds, they're gathering right from the plants. So there's always that potential that you're going to introduce other seed material that, either through how you process it or contamination or something like that, you're not always going to have exactly what you think you're going to have. It's a mixture as well. So, we had hoped to have it, not grow as tall. It's not an exact science. So, maybe a little maintenance, without the competition, we could keep it down to a lower level. I think that was something that we had talked about doing last year, cutting it down, and then so it isn't competing with all that other stock that's already existing. So, if you've got taller growth there, one season, the new growth is going to try to expand and grow above that. So my feeling is there needs to be some maintenance done. And I think, through any plantings, even trees, we end up calling out, in a forested environment, you end up calling out material to make the other ones successful. So you have a very high density planting, you've got high density and very strong competition from other plants. So the plant wants to outcompete the one next to it. So I think a lot of it is that, yes, the density is a good thing for shoreline restoration efforts, but in this case, I think the density can also work against us and allow those plants to grow taller. As Justin mentioned, they are making an effort to try to eradicate some of those that are problematic, and I think that's going to be an ongoing part of the maintenance program here. So, it's not an exact science. It's not maintenance free. I mean, everybody thinks that prairie plantings, are maintenance free operations. Well, it really isn't. If you want to have especially in this sort of environment, you have a lot of different interests going on here, and I think, you're going to have to make some concessions on, which plants need to be eliminated, which they have agreed to work on, and I think that, again, it's going to have to be a concentrated effort in order for it to be, continue to be successful.
Okay. You, Bill?
Looking at that, I drove by there today again, as I did last month. And looking at it, I'd say 90% of it is higher than 2 feet.
Yeah.
I'd say 90% of that stretch is higher than 2 feet. And according to the minutes of our April 25th meeting, thanks to Jim Michelson, you said nothing would get higher than 2 feet. So was that a little fluff that you put in there so you would pass it? Or
No,
you
sir.
could have said...
First of all, I don't believe that I would have said 2 feet. I would have said 2 to 3 feet.
Well,
then
that's-
Trish made that
But,
mistake.
I don't, if you want to put, put me on the spot here. I cannot guarantee you how tall that plant is going to grow. And I was giving you an estimate of what I believe that plant would grow to.
And that's fine.
Competition
2 to 3
is a
feet,
factor.
That's
though.
fine.
I mentioned that earlier. Competition with other plants is going to factor into it. If you plant 50 trees together, one of those trees is going to grow taller than the other ones because it's outcompeting others.
Bill, I mean, what I think you're saying is maintenance can solve this problem. Is that accurate?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Maintenance is key for any sort of planting you do. If you plant your garden at your home, you're going to have to maintain it.
Okay, that's
okay.
You got that straight. That's what you were getting at, right?
Yeah. I mean, one of the major things is why a lot of the board members went along with this is they were assuming it was going to be 2 feet or less.
And that's exactly why we went along with it.
Well, and I think we told a lot of neighbors that we would maintain that height, but I don't think we as a board have done that.
How many were on the board at that time?
You mean, that's it, yeah.
5 of us.
Yeah.
And I think, I agree with Jim, that's the only reason that it passed, because we were going 2 feet or less.
It is, but it's a matter, like Bill said, it's a matter of maintenance. And I don't think there was nobody went down there and said, we got to keep these down or we got to keep them. They just kept growing. Everybody figured this was a wild plant, and we just let it go. I didn't go down there last year and look at it and think, well, it's a little high or anything. I'll admit it. And nobody did. Everybody thought it was a wild plant until this year when I got up to 7 and 8 feet. Now, come on. That gets a little ridiculous.
But you also have to remember that.
I don't care how anybody looks at it. That is ridiculous. I mean, you look across Miller's Bay at that area, and it looks hideous to me because it's up so high. It's going up to the trees. Much less when you're walking along the trail, you can't see. And I don't care what you say unless you're jumping. Again, it's only that one area, but why would it be that high? We were told that it was going to be he's 2 foot. 2 to 3 foot, that's fine. But all of a sudden, it's 8 foot. Now, if they'd have stayed with the 2 to 3 foot, we wouldn't be here arguing this thing. As far as the expansion goes, there is no way that I could ever, as long as I'm on this board, go along with an expansion across from the water plant. Because if they put this in across from the water plant, you'd have cars parking up next to it. And I would never go for that. As far as by the pump house, I can see that. There's certain things that we don't want people around that pump house, even in the winter, because the ice is kind of thin, and we really don't want anybody around there. Maybe it would help. But I can't support anything where you just go buy some to the seeds and they get the 8 foot tall, they're 7 foot tall, 6 foot tall. There is no way I can support anything like that.
Justin, could you move some of the taller plants behind the pump house where I don't think the height is going to be an issue?
No, I don't think it's an issue of moving those plants. It's an issue, like he said, of getting rid of those high plants and planting the right stuff in the right area.
Just to answer your question, the plan does state to transplant them from where they currently are to another area. Again, there's an emphasis on 2 feet that you're talking about, but the reality is typically the taller, the more dense the plant itself, the larger the plant, the greater the root system it has, the more impact it has, the more beneficial it has from our side of it. So if we can save those plants, which, as you know, you need to dig them up early in spring when they started to get tall and we identified them, you saw how big they are. It was a little bit late. And so we have it in the plan to next spring remove all of those tall plants, which would be a lot. And ideally, we would have another location to move them to where there wouldn't be any residential neighbors that would be impacted.
What about mowing it, Ray? Could we mow this down for them one time? I mean, to give them a hand here?
Yeah, I think, as Bill said, I don't think we've been involved as much as we probably need to be. I think the mowing is something that, as Bill talked to the seed distributor, is something that probably should happen this fall. There is a potential burning ordinance coming forward from the police, or from, sorry, not the police chief, the fire chief,
possibly over the winter months where that might become an option. So there might be different options that we can look at as far as better maintenance in working with Justin and his group on that pilot project.
Without it taking on a life of itself. I mean,
Correct. We'd be more than willing if we can get in there and then we can arrange for that mowing. That's what we need to do.
And we've talked about that, and I think that's good. Ideally, we talk to Traxler from Marshland Aquatic, get the best practice for that. In addition, ideally, we can go through, like I said, we're going to hopefully go through in later October and harvest some seeds first.
and I hope you see where the board feels that they've been a little bamboozled by this, but trying to come up with a compromise that works for everybody.
I think what we've tried to do is provide a lot of compromise. There's no interest or likely ability for, somebody mentioned that the whole shoreline is going to, as long as it's us, just for funding purposes, I can't see that being a possibility. We'd like to possibly do more, but again, focusing on areas that we're hearing their concerns, and we're trying to go elsewhere. We're trying to lower the plant height. The location, the location was selected based on the park recommendation and the Ontario study, which launched this whole thing, said you need to restore that area. So, that was why the location, and it proved to be healthy for the plants themselves, but maybe too healthy, I suppose, right?
I can see mowing it down and have them go through and see if they can get it to maintain a level, and I'm not even going to say 2 foot, maintain a level from 2 to 3 foot even, but not get any bigger, and see if that, before they plant anything new, because like I said, I couldn't go along with anything across from the water plant. A pump house would be one thing, but I think somebody's got to prove this to me that it works, and nobody's proven it to me. They planted it and they've left it go, as far as I'm concerned. And by the size of it this year, I know it's gone too far.
Terry, that's what this is all about. This was a pilot project.
Right.
We're back after the 3 years looking at the pilot project. Many things of the pilot project are good. A lot of people, the shoreline restoration and all the plantings are nice. It's the height that's the issue, and a lot of the board members, like the shoreline restoration, it's just where is it going to be, where are we putting them, and how many of them are there, that kind of thing. So it's a pilot project. I think we should go back, try to do what was said we were going to do. Could we, and this would be for either Bill, or you, Justin, could we maintain that at 2 feet? It's a pilot project. We're going back and we're reviewing it.
Could you get it to 2 feet? Again, 2 feet is very hard. Oftentimes the plant itself will grow 2 feet. The flower itself shoots up higher. So if you buy a plant, it says, this plant gets to 3 feet tall, but the flower itself shoots up 5 feet, right? So your goal of 2 feet tall plants, what it really does is cuts out a lot of the diversity that we would have, because you only have a handful of plants that would do well there. I think that, as I have in the plan and the addendum, is that we acknowledge that we need to take steps to reduce the height. And again, you're talking about thousands of plants, and we'd like to not throw all of that away. That would just be throwing money away. These are great, healthy plants that have positive impacts. So if we can move them. And the plan suggests getting rid of 85% of the plants that exceed 5 feet in height. From our side, that would be remarkable. That would be a great step towards what you're talking about. I'm not sure if you're looking at, I'd like to have this instantly done in a week. But, if we can even have a phased in, as in the first year, as I mentioned before, work to get rid of 85% of the tall ones. Some might go back to seed. We'll get those later. We'll cut them down if they do start to grow, and the next year we'll get them. And possibly the next year, then we look to remove, like I mentioned, the yellow cone flowers or some of the others that grow in that 4 to 5 foot range. We start that process. That's great. It's not our intention. I apologize, it maybe seems that way. It's not our intention to say, hey, neighbors, we're going to block your view, right? That wasn't in our goals ever anywhere. It's not in the plan. And I'm not sure that I'm not sure some individuals can be appeased with anything, but I think that we can make progress on reaching some of their goals as well.
Justin, if the Parks Department cuts down that area, are you going to be able to recognize the taller plants that have to be removed, or do you need to remove them before that happens?
No, they get removed in spring. When we go out, it's not just me, right? So I make sure that there are people who really know what they're talking about. Some of the partners that have signed on, they would be considered plant experts. So when I'm going through, my knowledge on a scale from 1 to 10 might be at 3. And maybe you're at a 2, Bill. And before I pull this plant, here one, I have to say, Zyga, can I pull this? Because I don't know them all. And so we go through with people who do, and they're going to be able to identify them very early on. So that way we can ideally dig them before they're too big and move them, and they'll still survive. As you know, when you're transplanting in your garden, if you do it in August, that's a little bit late. But if you do it in early June, you can get it and it'll still survive. So absolutely, identification is not an issue whatsoever.
Okay,
Okay, I can't shut up the citizens, but I can shut us up for a minute. I'd like to start, we all know what the guys that were on to begin this. I'd like to start right here and get your opinion on it.
Okay.
She ain't ever going to get a word in over us anyway, if we don't.
Thank you. You know, one of the things that just really stands out listening, I mean, and from holy cow, I mean, a lot of letters and emails and things like that, and support one way or the other, and then listening to folks come up and talk is multiple use. I mean, that park is for people that play soccer, that play baseball, that like to walk, that like to bike, that like to go to the zoo, that like to fish, that like to, and I mean, I've seen that growth, and yeah, it probably should be cut down some. I mean, that needs to be managed a little bit. But I mean, I hear about the stories about, you know, people taking their kids to see in educational purposes and different things like that. And I think those are very, very valid points. And maybe we work at cutting down that section a little bit to help with the view and do some of the taller species. And what a better place in front of Webster Stanley. It's not blocking a resident's view. It's, you know, an easy access for the children and teachers and things like that are there. So my opinion is cutting some of that down in the area that's obstructing some of the residents' view. And as far as I can see with the other proposed plantings, it doesn't look like that's in front of any residents. And because it just seems like there are a lot of people that really do enjoy this, and I think it looks beautiful in the summer and the fall time. So that's my opinion.
I do have a question. How many other communities surrounding Lake Winnebago are doing projects like this? Does anybody have that answer?
I have Green Lake.
No, Lake Winnebago.
Lake Winnebago. Small lakes, it doesn't, this is great for a small lake. This is Lake Winnebago.
I don't know, I was just...
Way in the back.
For private purposes, and for county contact the Lake Water Conservation Department and the county surrounding Lake Winnebago. There's a tax incentive for private landowners on waterfront property for shoreline restoration. So they would be able to give you an estimate of what's going on in private, and then you can contact the Parks Board for the county and cities surrounding Winnebago, Lake Winnebago, and get an estimate that way.
Okay.
Thank you. I went out there a couple times. Some people stopped me and said how beautiful it was. One woman really liked it. She came out there, took pictures of flowers all the time. I do think it's a good thing, but I do think it's way too high. I'm 5'9" for anyone who wants to use me as a gauge, and when it's at my nose level, that's high. I do think, Jim, 2 feet may be a little too ambitious, but 2 to 3 feet to me seems something that's reasonable. I don't think you're obstructing views in that way. I also think that since we are a city that prides ourselves on being on the water, we do have an obligation to be a leader in what we can do to protect our waterfront. So I do see all the values and positive things that can come out of doing something like this. However, that being said, I also agree with Terry's statement that we need to be proven that this can be maintained in that capacity before we can expand. I don't see any issues really with what you're proposing to expand to. I do think the Webster Stanley area is great. I truthfully don't know if extending the Ames Point area would be a great idea considering all of the pushback that's happened right now. So I think it would have to be proven that you can maintain what you've got there and then also move to other areas maybe first and see if you can maintain those areas as well before we consider expanding. But I think maintenance is a huge issue that needs to be addressed immediately. And by immediately, I mean the next couple of years. So,
I can't support anything that would be over 2 feet other than around the pump house, immediate area of the pump house, but other areas, I wouldn't support anything that would be higher than 2 feet.
I was here. I was on the board in 2012 when we voted, and I remember the discussion of the 2 feet, and that's truly why I supported it at the time. I don't understand why we just can't admit we made a mistake. And everybody made a mistake, from the seed purchase to us talking about it to maintenance to whatever. I guess I don't get, can't we move the whole thing? I mean, I get it that there's a huge cost involved to doing this, but we're talking about moving or expanding or whatever. But to move it in front of the pump house would make the most sense to me. I do feel bamboozled, as Jim said, because of the line that we were fed about the 2 foot. And I get it, it's not possible to keep it at 2 feet, but it seems to me that we could solve the problem. There's a compromise here somewhere, and I think we just need to find it.
When you left, I wanted everybody's opinion. That's
fantastic, and I'm sorry I left momentarily there. I hope I didn't miss too much. But no, I wasn't on the board 2 years ago, so I guess I didn't hear those promises that were made at the time. We've got. I'm not a scientist either, a biologist, and I did rely upon heavily the letters of support that we received from others in the community and in the state. I think the group that's putting this together in this plan for the next 5 years is responsive to the concerns that and the complaints that we've had. I don't think it is necessarily going to provide a 100% solution, but I think they seem committed to working towards something that's going to be amenable to everyone that enjoys the park, lives near the park, and uses the park. I do think, certainly the Lake Winnebago, we do have a problem with algae blooms. As a matter of fact, the quality of Lake Winnebago has a serious threat to our wastewater treatment plant operations, and some issues where us as a community may need to invest tens of millions of dollars down the road. So I think anything we can do to mitigate the quality of Lake Winnebago is certainly going to help with our DNR permit. We're going through that process of having those downstream flows for phosphorus levels that the DNR is evaluating each year. I support this at this point. I think we're just looking out over the next 5 years. 5 years from now, it's going to come up again. So I'll be making a recommendation to support it tonight.
Jim, are you said enough? It's up to you.
Well, I go back to the pilot project, and the pilot project was very successful in most areas, other than, in my opinion, other than height. And I agree with you. I would not want to see it in front of the water treatment plant, blocking views, potentially doing that. The only other possible place I could see would be in front of the pump house. And a lot of people fish along there. I wouldn't support anything if we were to do it to another area. Yeah, I definitely don't want it on the extending the area by where it's at on the north end of Miller's Bay, they're going back, adding another however many feet on that, not at this point in time. But I could see in front of the pump house, but I wouldn't want to see it bigger than the pump house. If the pump house is 60 feet or 80 feet wide, whatever, that's what I think it should be, because there's a lot of people that fish there. There's people that cross-country ski there in the winter, you know, and I would like to see, even if you put it there, I would like to see a little area where people could fish in front of it, and so there's not big, tall plants there, so people can cross-country ski there in the winter, just like they did today on the existing one. But I don't think it should be bigger than the size of the building, because I think that's going to be an issue. There are people at different angles, it's going to block their view, but the pump house is, in my opinion, unsightly, and I think that would be a great place to have some taller plants. But I would like to see where it's at today reduced. I'd like to see 2 feet, but 2 feet's not possible. But where does it end? When is it going to? When you say 2 to 3? How is it? Is it going to be? Before you know, it's going to be 4 feet, 5 feet. Or are we back into the same thing again? I mean, I thought when I first thought this proposal, I didn't know all the details of the mix. I thought it was going to be some kind of low ground cover thing, with some flowers and stuff in it. I guess what was planted and what my perception, because of the height, is different than what I thought.
Mr. Miller.
I'm not in favor of this at all, of the master plan 5-year at this date. Because the simple fact, it hasn't proven to us, to me, that you maintained what you said you were going to do. If you can say over the next 2-3 years, get that down to a manageable height, we could revisit it. I don't know if we can propose that at all. I agree with Justin of taking out the taller plants and not throwing them away. Use them someplace. And the pump house is a good place to put them. But there, and I agree with Jim, not that 100 feet to the north of the pump house, because I was out there and walked it. I got to the parking lot, walked past the pump house and everything, and I would not want to see it go past the north end of the pump house.
Yeah, 60 feet to the north, 100 to the south is what we had talked about.
I wouldn't want to see it go 60 feet to the north.
I'm just for perspective,
Right.
if you saw about 60 steps, like foot next to foot. It's just sometimes when you say 60 feet, people, you envision this really long, expansive area, which is not the case. I mean, from here to there,
Down to home plate.
from here to there.
There you go.
You know baseball, I understand, right?
So, I would, anything, give them another 3 years on the pilot project so that they can cut it down and show us that they can maintain it before we go any farther. And while I was out there today, I rode over by the water treatment plant, and there were 3 cars parked there, and I talked to 2 ladies in a car, and they loved down by Ames Point, but they didn't want to see it there because they couldn't drive up then and view the water that they do almost every day, 365 days a year. And 2 other people didn't have any idea what I was talking about at Ames Point. So, I can't support the 5-year plan at this time at all.
I wanted to go last because I'm probably going to be the longest winded, just to make Terry's.
No, I could cut you off anytime.
I mean, these sustainability issues are here to stay. It would have been a lot easier to vote for your 5-year plan had you maybe worked a little closer. And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, and we should have done a better job as a board. I think what Jonathan, to talk to what Jonathan said earlier, we really need to control that area on the north end, Justin. I mean, we made commitments to people in this room saying, and they weren't happy with us at that time, that we said, okay, we're going to do this, okay? I'm just as much of a conservationist as you are, probably more in some other areas, but we made a commitment to those people to keep this manageable, and we all agreed. I mean, everybody, well, not everybody at this table, but I do feel a little bamboozled. I think there definitely you have some maintenance issues on your hand. And I think if you can address those, I think you're going to have a heck of a natural setting out there. I can't support anything bigger than what you've already got up there. I can support that area behind the station house as kind of behind the pump station. And while we're talking about that, Ray, find some trees to hide that thing. Seriously, it was
we were supposed to get
yeah.
this when we passed it.
But and I want to be clear. I don't support this because I think it's going to make a difference. There's biologists and things in the room that'll argue with me. But I mean, how many watersheds come into that lake? I mean, it's just our competition isn't our shoreline there and goose crap and phosphorus or anything else. Our competition is the dozen or so watersheds that come into that thing. Low till, minimum till farming practices. Managing these big corporate farms and things like that. I mean, you get one of those, you get a spill from one of those corporate farms, and they're going to put us back 10 years from what we've accomplished here along the shoreline. I do think it is an incredible education tool. I like going out there. I wish you'd maybe update your placard out there, maybe change that. I think everybody's probably seen that one, maybe something like that. But I think putting it by Menominee Park behind the pump house there for the school and everything, I think that's a great idea.
If I could just comment on that, that is in the plan as well, that we do look to have additional signs. Again, that's $500 that one cost, so we relied on donations for that. Thank you, Audubon, for that.
Yeah.
But
I get it, but maintenance is a real issue. We've just got to get it better at the maintenance out there, and the height is definitely. I think you know what your obstacles are here, but I won't support your full 5-year plan, but I will support an additional planting area behind the pump house, limited to the size of the pump house, or maybe a little bit farther south, as long as it's not obstructing anybody's view.
Okay, and you're saying that cut down and let somebody show us that they can actually do this the way they told us. And I'm not holding anybody to 2 foot, but 2-3 foot.
Demonstrate.
But it's got to be down so somebody can walk by there and look at the lake.
Right.
All right? And then you said you would support something
behind the pump house.
Just the size of the pump house.
I think to start with, I think we can.
Do we want to get
It's either 60 or 80
3-year
feet.
plan to another 3 years to show that they can manage this?
I would give them 3 years to see if they could do it. Took 3 years to go the
Before we do anything, I'd like to hear from staff, though, on maintenance, and, I mean, how you guys feel about what. Yeah, I think you see where we're going with this, so, Ray?
Sean, did you
Well,
want
I was just going to say, I mean, I think we're evaluating this plan, though, here tonight. I don't know if we can kind of line item veto parts of the plan. I mean, either we turn it down. And then let
We
them
are
back-
turning the plan down.
Let them go back.
We can vote on that first, and then we can go back.
Go back to the drawing board. And then,
We can vote on that.
But I'd like to hear from staff. Maybe we're committing you guys to something that you don't have resources to do.
No, I think where you're going is an area that Bill and we haven't talked extensively about it, but I think it's true that it's a project that still needs work. I think extending the time period to allow us to work closer with Justin and the group has been wonderful. He's got a lot of volunteer hours put in out there. He's got a lot of donations, whether it's time, money. So I don't want that to get overlooked because it shouldn't. So we'd like to work with them. Bill's been in contact with the seed distributor, recommended mowing it down this year. As I said, there might be something coming in the future where we can do a prescribed burn out there, protecting the trees or whatever else is in there. We can handle that. So I think it's a project. I don't think it's feasible to ask the group to remove the project. I think Justin's going to do the right thing by removing the higher plants, and as long as you're giving him an alternative to move those to the pump station area, I think we heard that loud and clear. It'll be reflected in the minutes. So I'm in favor of it. I think it's a great project. I think it's a work in progress yet. I don't think it's ready to be expanded to some of the bigger areas that have been proposed.
Bill?
So what we're saying then is that.
I just
oh,
want
okay.
to.
I thought you meant.
No.
Yeah, I agree with much of what Ray said, and took into account a lot of the comments that came up here this evening. Of course, I think as you know, I was kind of the staff liaison with this project, so I was kind of involved with it on a number of Saturdays, let's say. As you know, when we talked with the consultant about the seed, I had been told that we could expect, and I had actually told him I needed stuff that was not going to be above 3 feet. I don't recall the 2 feet, but 2 to 3. Okay,
and I think everybody will be okay.
No,
with
and I
3
think again, this year was an incredible growing season, and because of the density, there was a lot of competition. So I think things did expand very rapidly. I'd say it was very successful, obviously. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here having this discussion. But again, I think I'm very comfortable with doing a little higher level of maintenance on it. I think Justin and I correspond quite a bit, and I think we understand, the needs. And the group that is working on this is highly skilled with plant identification. They're very ecologically conscious. They know a lot about the plants, and I think that, with their help, this can be managed at a whole other, level that will satisfy a lot of the folks in the neighborhood, I hope, and actually build the success of the project. So, more management is good in this sense. I think a lot of good things will come to it. I don't want to see it go away, of course, because it was developed as an educational tool. And the conversations that we had early on with the Land and Water Conservation was primarily focused on educating citizens about what could potentially be done with lakeshore or river properties to help eliminate runoff and provide good habitat for birds and insects and wildlife and that sort of thing. So I think in that sense, I believe that ramping up the educational mission of what we have already today, I think, is very important. And I think also participation by the group to manage it a little more tightly, given the very public view of it. Obviously, we don't have a huge tract of land that we could work with to allow it to just go completely natural. But I think to manage it at some level so that we can hopefully get everybody more in agreement of its benefits, and also emphasize that educational reason behind that pilot project to begin with. The whole thing was an experiment, so please understand that. Sometimes, experiments can go, a little bit off, what you had expected it to, but, I think there's something to be learned from that as well. So.
Okay.
So, can we vote on this master plan and then come back and make a recommendation?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
If you would like to make a motion to support the plan, then you take that vote, and if not, then you can come back, make some alterations or some revisions, and vote on that.
Well, wouldn't you just call the roll and either yay or nay?
Correct. But we'd like some direction moving forward. I'd like it at least in the minutes saying that the board would direct staff to work with Justin and his group.
That'd be a new motion.
Correct.
That'd be a new motion.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, so basically, we're voting on as it is for all the expansion.
Right. The total plan.
No,
Right,
not
the
at
total
this
plan.
If somebody makes that motion, yes.
Okay, but then we're going to put something else together. That
Then
kind
we're
of
just going to have a
reflects the-
recommendation in the minutes to direct staff. It isn't going to be a motion.
Wow.
We're just going to direct staff, and I'm pretty sure he's got it down what he wants.
It's gonna be a
what we
motion.
want him to do. So we have to have somebody to either make a motion to accept or reject.
Well, just the vote, Terry, either going to
formality.
be yes or no.
Yes,
Okay, formality.
Yeah, it's going to be a yay or nay.
All right.
We don't need a vote.
So would somebody like to make a motion to approve the 5-year management plan?
We did.
No, not to approve it.
Oh.
Yes, that's how it's on the agenda.
To approve it.
So if you,
It's just the formality of just getting it so we can vote.
All right, a second?
so Vic made the motion, Sean seconded. And this is, if you vote yes, you're approving the 5-year plan.
So, yeah. Harry, just a point of order, do I get a vote as well?
All right, Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Garens?
No.
Gogolewski?
No.
Michelson?
Nay.
Miller?
No.
Rule?
Aye.
Schisler?
No.
What did you vote?
I'm sorry, yay.
You said aye, nay.
Was it a yes?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm on cold medicine.
Schisler?
No.
Wilson?
No.
Wooler?
No.
Now we need to come back and give them some.
I'm pretty sure we know what, he knows what we want.
But we should make a motion, we should make a motion though, so that whatever it is.
You want to make a motion for that?
I think we should make a motion to direct staff to come up with a 3-year plan outlining, that we keep the existing plat, for the plot, not expanding that, and then also allowing him to expand behind the pump house.
Whatever with the.
Whatever the width of the pump house.
Is that your motion?
Yes. You got that, Ray?
And what their responsibility is for the.
Right, and we'd like some type of maintenance agreement with you, Justin, just so we can stay on top of this.
So Bill made the motion to essentially, what we talked about was to remove the taller plants to the pump station, but not to be wider than the pump station building.
Correct. And directly behind the pump station, on the water, next to the water. With a, do you agree with a little barrier, a little, just like we do today with a little path, fishing path, or so cross-country skiers and fishing people can go through there.
Did anybody second that? Sean? All right, so is everybody clear on this motion?
I don't, do you, just the rules usually of when you create a new motion, do you have to give the public a chance to speak?
No.
Isn't that kind of a,
should open for discussion.
The public?
It's up to you. As the chair, you can.
Anybody want to talk about this? What we just said?
Can you come up to the front and give us your name and address?
We're going to open this. We're going to open this. We start doing this.
There have been a lot of arguments made about this being an educational piece to our community, and what it's going to be teaching people is that it's good to produce sustainable solutions to problems that we have. And what we're going to be teaching our kids, what you are going to vote against potentially, based on what I've heard so far, is 50 years down the line, kids are going to make the change if you don't do it now. And your names are going to be put to this vote. And they're going to look back and wonder why we didn't make a big change when we needed it to happen. I mean, I didn't go in Lake Winnebago one time this year because just walking up to it, it smells terrible. It's called Lake Winneseptic as a nickname for a reason. And if we have an opportunity to actually make a change to that, I think we should take full advantage of it, start it now, and press other communities to make the same change that we are doing. That's all I really have to
Talking
say
about the
about it.
resolution, we're not talking going
No,
back.
we're not.
We've already voted against it.
We voted against that.
Oh,
so you-
well, that's too bad.
We're just
It's
talking
gonna
about
come
the
back.
resolution.
But we're voting about maintaining this relationship.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't understand.
Well, I just think we should look more into the future than just staying in the present. There's a lot to be done.
Or, Thank you. We'll ever
Go ahead.
in 1,000 years.
Joe Malecki again.
No.
Go ahead, Al.
I've got 300.
When he was my teacher, he was pushy like that too. Just so everybody knows, he used to be my teacher.
Name and address.
Name and address.
Yes, sir. I live across from Miller's Bay.
Sir?
I don't
Sir?
like the plants that are 7 feet high, not 5, they're 7. We have a geological restoration program I've run for 25 years over here on Moore Road. You come out there, I'll give you all the plants you want, any size. You've got people who want to plant them. You come out, you pick the pods out. If you want loosestrife, I got loosestrife. If you like red flowers that are against the rules.
Okay, we're talking, that's good.
Anything you want.
We're talking about the resolution right now.
Yeah.
That's good.
You're worried about your butterflies? I got probably 10 to 15,000 milkweeds out there. If you want to come out now and pick those, you can come out and plant, have a whole thing with nothing but milkweeds for the butterflies. But
Okay.
I'll give you the flowers. Come anytime you want. He's worked with me, he knows where it is and everything. He said, "Don't dug a ditch for me."
Yeah, I know. Thanks, Roger.
Again, Joe Malecki, 1308 Menominee Drive. What I would like to, speak to the resolution is, as part of that resolution, you have in there, as part of this 3-year plan, that current plot that is now at, 5, 6, 7 feet, be maintained, at the end of that 3rd year, that plot is being maintained at no more than 3 feet. And in that, then, is proof of concept. As far as transplanting the taller weeds, I would be against planting them to the plop house. You've got a provision here, number 8, educate attendees on native and agrarian species of Wisconsin for your Menominee Park Zoo. Transplant those to the area along the shoreline of Menominee Park Zoo, and you have a place to store them, keep them without further putting something on the shoreline. And then once that is approved and they show they can do this, then they can expand to the pump house. And I don't know if that's feasible or not, but to me it would go right along with number 8.
And I think for you to understand why we're saying behind the pump houses, there's a lot of cost to this. These guys have invested a lot of money and everything. To move those taller plants and just to say, knock down these taller plants, I think we're costing this organization a lot of money. I don't like the pump house. I wish they would have built it underground just like they did the retention pond deal. These sustainability issues have to be front and center. They're not going to go away, and there's going to be more and more of this. Let's give them a chance to move these plants, put them behind the pump house. It's not going to obstruct anybody's view, and I think it'll be an additional, chance for them to prove themselves.
Okay. But again, at the end of that 3-year period, that they have maintained that current area at 3 feet or less before this board would agree to expanding it to further areas in the park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Janet Wisnick again. I'm disappointed that you didn't vote for the 5-year plan, but I'm happy to see that you're willing to work with us because, I'll stand by Justin and speak for, I think, for the many groups that are involved that we will continue to work and we will try to make this work. 3 feet sounds a little difficult because I know plants, but we're willing to do what we can, and to have the opportunity to show that is great, and to be able to move it to the pump station, the taller plants, have another place to work with. It gives us a chance to prove ourselves and what we really want to do and how we really hope it will look for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I, too, understand why you could not approve the 5-year plan as much as I would have loved to have seen that. But I would really love to see this resolution go forward and give the organization a chance and move it, and also show my kid, who was here until about 8, he had to go home because he cared that much, but give him an example to see what people can do. And I heard a lot of, it's such a small place, what difference can it make? And every change, everything that matters relies on someone, some community, to take that first small step and show people how it can be done. And I really hope that you take this opportunity to continue in that vein and show the rest of the surrounding counties how they can work together, and we can all work together to continue to restore this area, make the water quality better, and provide a great avenue for all kinds of people to enjoy the lake.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I got a note here, and it's related to a topic Bill gave it to me. It's related to a topic that connects to the water treatment facility plot. One of our partners was the Menominee South Neighborhood Association, and the reason that was intriguing for us is because that opens the door for community development funds. So neighborhood associations have $1,000 available that we could then direct towards shoreline restoration. That's what we were planning or hoping to do. In addition, I have an army of people in that neighborhood. Now, of course, they can come over. I had talked to Ray and suggested that if that particular plot by the water treatment facility was an issue, it would be glorious if there was an alternative location. And the zoo is possible because that is in the neighborhood association as well. But an alternative location within the neighborhood, so between Irving and Washington, that there would be an opportunity for us to tap into that funding. The neighborhood association members have committed funding and volunteer time. Just something to consider. They can certainly come over and cross the border. What that cuts out is funding and the concept of working in your specific neighborhood. Just throwing that out. So the note was, can we do it in the zoo? And that is certainly a discussion that I had thrown out with Ray as well. That would require another board, not a problem. The zoo is already actually doing some of the shoreline restoration. If you go in, they have some educational material as well. But
Call vote.
Sorry. Fitz,
We read it back first.
He's going to rely on Trish for that.
the motion is to
limit the test plot on the north end to the same size.
to the existing plot, work with staff on a management of the height as well as mowing, and we've kind of got that in the minutes, but then to transplant the higher growth to the Melvin Avenue pump station area, not to go wider than the pump building. Correct?
It's a 3-year.
Right.
Is there a
three-year test?
3-year.
A 3-year
pilot program.
Extension, I would think.
Yeah, or whatever.
Okay. Is everybody clear?
We
Fitzgerald?
We are willing to come back. I'm sorry, if I can just say, gladly we'll come back every year or do a site meeting out. That's probably something we should have done from the get-go, kept better communication, and we can certainly do that. One recommendation is if you don't restore that next area, I would encourage the Parks Department to seed that with grass seed, because it's just full of weeds, and that weed actually comes into our plot then. And so because it was treated and never seeded, it's just weed.
Up in the north end?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Gerens?
Aye.
Gogolewski?
Aye.
Michelson?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Rule?
Aye.
Schisler?
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
And Wooler?
Aye.
Okay. We have good direction. And
Thanks.
Ray, I
want
missed.
to thank everybody for your time.
This something.
Thank you.
Thanks for putting up with us.
Pretty.
Consultant is here.
Thank you.
Okay.
One of the really smaller water you could not have consistency. They have the North High. It's a
that thing.
consistency. Education.
Yeah. Let me see if the
I'm not
board is willing to.
putting over the other stuff. I think we should make everybody stay as long as we have to.
I think Terry's going to set a new record tonight. Huh? No, we've got one.
All right, are we ready to go?
All right, discuss the Menominee Park Zoo Master Plan.
It's been a long time.
Terry, if I could have the board's attention, and Mr. Mitchell had another item here that he wanted to do under citizen comments prior to the meeting. Is it acceptable for the board if we allow him to do that so that he can be on his way before we do the new master plan? It'll take a matter of 2 minutes probably.
Oh, 2 minutes, all right.
So the first event that the Menominee South Neighborhood Association, first event that we undertook was a tennis tournament. Worked with Chad and the Mid-Morning Kiwanis and the Oshkosh scene. We happened to choose the worst possible day of the year. I think it was October 4, where it kind of snowed and rained, and it wasn't supposed to rain until noon. So we started the tournament, and then it started raining about 5 minutes before we started. We did have 10 players, and the commitment for the tournament was that we would donate all proceeds to help fund maintenance of the tennis courts. So I did get some sponsors. The sponsors included Beckett's, the Oshkosh Scene, Manila Resto, and Gardenias. That included prizes for winners as well as court sponsors. The donations ranged from $30 to $60. Great help from Dennis Kavanaugh and Cynthia Thorpe, who kind of hang through the cold weather. We didn't have a tent because we didn't get the approval from the process, but I do have a check for $275 that I understand is going to be used maybe for some net repair there, that first court. And so the neighborhood association, the Menominee South Neighborhood Association, would like to present the Parks Department with $275 for tennis court maintenance.
Thank you.
I'll give it to you.
Is it made out to Bill Miller?
Yes.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, I'm going to introduce Greg from FEH Associates, again, our architects. And over the past month or so, Greg and his staff have been providing some focus groups and some public input for the Menominee Park Zoo. And what we want to do tonight is show that preferred concept plan to you. And Greg's going to walk you through, give you some ideas on what the public had suggested, as well as some ideas to get your thoughts generated. We're not looking for approvals tonight. Again, it's more of an update on where we're at, and we'd hope to come back to you at the next meeting with a preferred plan, as well as some potential cost estimates for the zoo master plan.
Okay, thank you. We've been quite busy since we last addressed your board. On your schedule here, as you can see, as Ray had said, we're right about down here, so we're about 2/3 of the way through this process. Since we last met with you, we've met with the zoo board, and we've had some focus groups. We had a advisory task force meeting, and we really did a lot of work in concert with a lot of different people participating in this as a way to come up with best recommendations and best ideas. In that spirit, what we developed were a list of goals for this project in terms of what it is that we wanted to accomplish. And we had an initial list of goals, and at the last advisory committee meeting, we added a couple of additional goals. So there's 14 goals here. I won't read them all, but really, you can look at those. It's all community-based, and it's really about improving the quality of the zoo experience, including animal welfare in a more positive direction, supporting the city's initiative to being an event city, creating educational programs. I mean, all of those things are pretty near and dear to everybody's heart that participated in this process. The economic development for the city. All of these initiatives really pointed us in a direction to say, okay, how do we make this experience a first-class experience? What is that going to take? On October 1st and 2nd, we had our on-site design workshop. My partners and colleagues worked together to generate a total of 12 different ways to look at developing the zoo in terms of looking towards the future. How does this become the next 50-year zoo footprint, if you will? Because that was one of the initiatives that we were directed to look at. So as we looked through this together, we looked at what was unique about the zoo and what was unique about the land and what's unique about the collection. And what came to the top of the list is the concept that you see is concept FG2. And that came about as we had concept A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. F and G were combined at one point in the process by people voting on what they liked the best. And we came up with FG2. So what FG2 really is based on in terms of a zoo concept to get your orientation. This is the, help me with the road.
Pratt Trail.
Pratt Trail Road right here. This is the children's playground right over here. Here's the inlet from the lake, and this is the retention pond. Essentially what we did is we looked at creating different biomes that are existent here in Wisconsin. This is supposed to be native species. It's all about the native opportunities. So we have glacial plains, we have northern hindmost forest or hardwood forest, we have Horicon marsh, we have all of these natural places that are all about Wisconsin that we're looking to replicate in some way, shape, and form as an educational experience on the zoo grounds in Menominee Park. Also, in association with that, we really looked at the water as an opportunity rather than as something that you have to navigate around. That body of water takes up, about a third of the footprint of the zoo itself, and we're looking for ways to engage it and make that more an active part of the zoo experience. So what we've done with this is we really haven't changed it, but we've really wanted to increase the presence of creating additional wetland within the zoo experience itself. Kind of as a natural organizer of how the exhibits could flow around it, but also in terms of using that water and doing the same thing that you heard about for the last couple of hours, increasing water quality. Our plan here is to use this wetlands and use it as a traveling path of water through the zoo grounds to actually improve the quality of water in that detention pond itself. I mean, there's 5 inlets into this. Water's coming from different places. Our idea is to take the water and pump it up to one of the top exhibits and have it run down in a kind of a babbling brook, if you will, through wetlands, cattails, things like that that are going to make the water quality better before it gets returned back into the retention pond. In doing that, we've reshaped the pond a little bit so that we're able to achieve some of the animal species that we set out to do. The main aspects of the plan, this is the current otter exhibit, the wolf exhibit, the elk exhibit. All of those stay where they are. We're not really changing any of that. But what we're doing is creating a pathway and a network of pathways that make it very intuitive for people to get around the zoo grounds itself. And we looked at adding a black bear exhibit, which is part of a previous master plan that was going to utilize an existing structure here that's back a house for elk. We're looking at being able to increase the opportunity for having animals change out into different pens. We'd have an opportunity for putting a bobcat in here. We'd have other small native species of otter, mink, raccoon, skunk, maybe even an eagle being located in the center area here with exhibits. And then as you come around to the other side of the water feature, the domestic farm structure would still be located, it would be relocated over here. This would be home to badger, porcupine, red fox. There might even be an opportunity for a cougar or mountain lion exhibit up here. And then in expanding the service component of the operation, but also then increasing the opportunity for spider, snakes, smaller things that would be pigeonhole kind of exhibits in the side of the building. From the educational perspective, we really looked at wanting to achieve a couple of things. Having some environmental classrooms, having an opportunity for meeting space, and what we really decided was that this is the place for the front door for the zoo. So where the existing bathrooms are, this would be the place that the educational component would be. There was also a lot of support for creating an aquarium type of activity space for Lake Winnebago and Wisconsin Lake fish. And the idea was to put that in this building as well in some type of an aquarium tank. We looked at some very large aquarium opportunities. We looked at some that were more scaled back. This happens to be the more scaled back one. This is probably a 1,000-gallon tank, if you will, something in that magnitude of order. The way we looked at also was creating a large event space, a patio, if you will, so that zoo activities could have their own programs and have their own activities within the zoo grounds themselves. And this building actually is engaging with that pond by being cantilevered out into the water, set up on piles. There'd be a boardwalk wrapping across the back side of that water. So again, the opportunity to take water samples for people to look down and see things that are happening in the water to allow that interaction to happen would be greatly enhanced with this program the way it is. We also had opportunity to meet with some other partner organizations during the design charrette. Brad Larson from the museum stopped over, and we had a conversation about some of the activities and initiatives they have going on over at the museum. And a couple of things really kind of hit home to me was that he said that with the program that they're putting on over at the museum grounds, they have an opportunity for looking at integrating some of the monument activities that exist here in the park. And he suggested there's a desire on the museum's part that they would like that to be part of their museum experience. We'd like to hear if that's something that this group would support or this group feels would be inappropriate, but it was something that was mentioned when we went through this design charrette process. The second item that came up from the museum was the fact that they're going through a change with their permanent exhibit gallery. And the existing exhibits within the museum need to find a new home. And because we have wetlands, and because we have a lot of the components and the educational experiences that they are going to be changing out when they go to a more Native American, I believe, exhibit, those exhibits are looking for a new home. the zoo might be a very good place to have some of those exhibits planned in this new front structure for your zoo grounds. So I think there's some real partnering opportunities that came out during the discussion of the design charrette, just because you're talking about it. So what we'd like to do is to hear if this plan makes sense to you from a layout perspective. Some of the feedback that we got from this concept F&G at our last meeting, when we actually scored this against all the criteria that we developed based on the goals, was there was a comment about, well, can we have parking on the opposite side of the street? There was a great desire to be able to have this parking actually be part of the zoo experience by allowing the domestic farm animal component to be expanded and actually absorb some of that parking space. It's a question. We think that it might be nice to have additional parking along that trail over here, but we also think that over by the tennis courts it might make sense to expand parking over there as well. I don't know if that's something that we would view as positive or being viewed as negative. I'd like to get some feedback on that. This master plan obviously would need to be done in phases. We looked at phasing of this. I can share with you what a phasing plan might look like and how you would go about something like this. We did put dollar signs on this for a master plan. This master plan's in about the $10 to $11 million price range if you did all of what you see here on the boards. So obviously it's not all going to be done at once, and it would have to be done in a logical sequential order. Some of the things that we heard about with some of the native species maybe being cohabitating with the wetland component of the zoo experience might fall in line with some of the projects that would likely happen first on a phasing project for the zoo. So with that, I guess I'd ask you if you have any questions about any of the features or any of the things you see.
I certainly, the educational event kind of building at the front door, the design is fabulous. I hope it's something that if a part of that project were to come to fruition down the road, that I would imagine would be a unique feature in the community, and I'm assuming would probably be able to be rented out for business meetings, for other events. I understand the capacity may be 25 or less, but I'm guessing and hoping that it'll be designed in that fashion, that it would, that classroom component will also have that component to it.
I think flexibility is really important. Having some exhibit space inside, having the flexibility to convert to classrooms, to meeting space, to gathering space. I think it's really meant to be a multi-purpose kind of a building.
Can you just kind of go through the buildings there, do you go underneath part of the building? Can you just kind of the flow kind of through that area?
Well, this is still the front door. So you'd walk into this building here, there'd be a welcome center, and you'd be going into kind of a large open space.
Okay.
In that open space, there would be this aquarium exhibit. Maybe it's a round exhibit with the fish kind of moving around in this exhibit. Maybe it's up against a wall. There'd be, of course, your restroom facilities. There'd be some support staff space here. There'd be a food service kitchen operation through the wall outside, serving to the plaza area. But also there'd be an indoor catering opportunity that if the tables were pushed off to the side in the classrooms where the classrooms are, you could then use that as a multifunction kind of a meeting space. So it's really meant to be a multifunction building. Classrooms would likely be over, closer to the water's edge. This is kind of it's a one-story building that's all on the same grade, so it's kind of hovering above the water. If you think about concrete piers coming up like from a pier, that's kind of what this would feel like, where you have a deck with you'll have a covering over part of it so that some of it's under weather protection, so to speak. But again, it would be a very open, glass-filled area looking out over the retention pond.
Thank you.
Ray, with the Menominee Park master plan, wasn't there something in the maintenance building for Jenny inside it that was going to be expanded, or was it not? We've gone through 3 master plans now, so
No, not in this maintenance building here, there's not. This is Stacy's maintenance building, basically,
Okay.
the zoo caretaker's building.
Okay, so there's no expansion there?
Nothing that's planned.
I thought there was an expansion someplace. Maybe
No.
that's yours over by the rock.
Yep. In Jenny's building, there was some in the future on from the Menominee Park Master Plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a whole separate. We stayed out of the zoo.
Okay. All right.
So.
Worry all out.
And I guess
It's a great concept.
what's the globe again? What's the history of that, or what the globe? What is that all about again?
The monument, I believe, is from the 60s.
Okay, is that I don't know when that was put in and what's.
It's pretty substantial.
Yeah.
But our observation is that it's kind of in a place in the park that really isn't necessarily appreciated because there's not too much going on by it, and it's kind of off all by itself under some trees. We really would like to see that space be absorbed as part of the service portion of the zoo, where the animal health and the animal welfare and safety yard gets made large enough to do everything that needs to do to maintain the significant number of animals that you're talking about adding here. So if there is a logical place, and it was sure wonderful to have Brad all of a sudden stop in and say, I really would like that over at my grounds, because we have a landscape plan that says we really need that monument. I'm not sure what his timing is. I'm not sure when he would like that, or how it would even get moved, or how the dollars would happen. I'm not sure who provided the dollars for that originally.
Could we find that out? That would be interesting to find out who donated that and what the history of that is.
Well, the benches are each branch of the service.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are people who will visit it and take a picture on it if they're in the Marines or Army or whatever it is. So, and I don't know. I mean, some there's one who died. So I'm not sure.
It'd be interesting just to know the history of was it donated? What?
If you look back, I think the city just paid for it.
Oh, did they?
Ranky Monuments was the one that did it, and my stepdad was the one that put it there. And that's the only reason I know.
Okay. Well, you got a good history. That's cool.
Yeah, but okay. I was young once too, and I can't remember that far back.
We can try to find some history on it, Jim.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
I think the city paid for it.
Okay. But yeah, that would give you more room, no, for sure.
Well, it's not a lot of space, but it's enough that would make a difference.
Right.
And we don't think it would detract from any of the other park activities.
Yeah, if we could find a decent home for it.
What did you say the total cost of the project would be, and how many phases would you project it be broken down into?
A lot.
Got to find the right sheet. Put this next to
You probably have to give them 2 checks instead of just one.
Okay, this is a drawing that's the same orientation as this. What you see here in blue circles are all the first things that would happen in terms of a sequencing of how you would go about doing something like this. Believe it or not, the first thing that needs to happen is to improve the service side of the zoo. Before you can take on any more animals, you have to be able to support them, feed them, take care of them, make sure their welfare is well taken care of. So in our phasing option, this really is the first thing that needs to be done. Once that's done, the next piece is phase 1B, 1C, and 1D, which is taking a look at the forest animals. So it's really taking from the otters and moving on down to the eagle, the skunk, the mink. All of these things in the center here would need to happen second. And the reason for that is you wouldn't want to come in and do a bear exhibit on the outside perimeter and then have to come and disrupt the whole center section of the zoo. It just wouldn't make sense. So you really need to do all of the things in the middle first, where the main circulation is, fill the wetlands, and then you would do the black bear exhibit as part of, I would call it, the last piece of the blue expansion of the zoo. Once those pieces are in place, then you could come over here and you could look at building the new farm, the new domestic animal building, the new domestic animal exhibits. That building would be a walk-through building, so those animals could be permanent to the zoo. They would have indoor and outdoor pens, so people could walk through the building and see them inside as well as seeing them outside. This would allow you to have year-round animals instead of renting those animals at the zoo. So that's what phase 2 is. Then you would come to phase, I guess it would be 2B, which is then coming up to the glacial plains and doing the cougar exhibit, the porcupine, the badger, the prairie dogs. All of those things could then be put into place because now you've moved the domestic animals to this location, so this becomes available for development. So it's kind of what pieces need to happen in what order to make the other next piece happen. And the last piece really is the front door. It's the educational component. Again, reason being is you've already taken care of moving all of the other components around. That would then be the place to tear open, I guess, if you will, the front door. So that's kind of a sequence of what would make logical sense. Not to say that if you told me that, well, we really need to do education first, I guess we could look at doing education as a first piece as well. As long as we're not adding any additional animals, then you wouldn't have to do the service component first. So if education really is going to take precedent over animals, then you might say we'd raise money to do that. So that's kind of how it would be sequenced. Yes?
Can I say something? Right?
Yes.
One of the things that he's not mentioning is there's a ton of interactive
You want to come
stuff.
up to the microphone so that the television audience can see and hear you?
I knew you were going to bring that up. What I failed to mention, and I was kindly reminded of, is that the interpretive experience will be 100-fold, I guess, from what you're doing now, not only in terms of signage, but in terms of interactive exhibits and interactive ways to deal with things on site. So what I didn't mention is in the center here, next to the eagle exhibit, next to the mink and otter exhibit, we might have a climbing structure. We might have something almost like equivalent of a tree house. So kids could, in fact, get up on different levels and see animals from different vantage points. Again, it's something for children to do, for adults to walk up and down. Having prairie dogs over here on this side is going to allow for interaction with the animals. Having the domesticated animals is going to give you other opportunities for hands-on activities. So these are things that we talked about. Yeah, we also talked. I mentioned the wetland starts, kind of in the bear exhibit, and one of the things that we're doing right now at the Henry Violet Zoo that we think would be a good idea here as well is to actually have the bears eating fish so that people could witness bears having their own meals. So you do a trout stream where you put the fish into the pond and you let the bears have at it. You can watch them splash around and you can watch them catch their own fish. So we're looking for opportunities to make this a first-class experience that is going to make it exciting for all. The prairie dogs, we might even have some human tunnels, so kids could crawl through some clear tunnels and see the prairie dogs when they're underground. I mean, you can do a lot of things interactively to make this a very experiential place in a much more meaningful way. So we're looking to incorporate those in here. Thanks for mentioning that. Other questions?
How long does it take to complete something like phase 1? Let's just start there.
This phase?
Sure.
Phase 1? How long would it take to complete it? If you had the money?
Another good question.
Okay, 9 months. I mean, it's in addition to an existing building. It's not a complete start over, if you will. It would be adding on and improving what you have, making a bigger service yard. So it's not a long construction time to make something like that happen, if you have the funds.
When you present this, are you going to present the phases with a cost estimate for each, to complete each phase?
We can. I guess the question I have is does that phasing make sense to you? Or is education more important that you would say, no, we really need education and we want that aquarium as being the first thing that people see to generate excitement? It's kind of hard to get excited about a service building unless you're a staff member trying to figure out how am I going to take care of all these new animals.
Jenny.
The reality is if you add animals, you have those facilities. If you're not adding animals and you want education as your first step, it's a different set of circumstances.
That's the only thing I was going to say, not looking at the phases, is that a lot of the open hearings we've had and a lot of the open meetings and things, like education is what everybody's been talking about. That's what we lack in ours. We lack any type of kind of educational, we lack any type of room space, we lack any type of indoor space for Rainford events. I'd like to start with, education, and again, that could be a place we could rent out for more, for money, having birthday parties there. Like right now, none of those things we can do because we don't have the space to do it. Maybe it will be meeting space. It'll be birthday parties. Maybe it'll be daycares, renting rooms. It could be a whole number of things. I mean, I personally would not want to see it as the last thing we do in our zoo, especially if you build the whole entire zoo up and bring in all these extra animals and all these other, educational things around the zoo. We still don't have that place for people to come and be out of the weather. Or, we had a comment this year from, even though our zoo is, we like to consider it handicap accessible or for kids and all that stuff. Really, it's very difficult for, I got a couple emails this summer from groups that they love the zoo and they love bringing their residents there. But, getting them out of the weather, if there's bad weather, or pushing them around gravel paths is very challenging for them. So yes, you can say it's handicap accessible, and it is. There's nothing they can't do, but it's not real easy for them. And certainly when you have, older folks, or there's no way to get out of the weather if they get, if they're stuck there and they want to have a pass or whatnot. So, I mean, I would just really like to see, before building everything else up, I'd like to have an educational spot where we can do programming and education and have room and space, and that's just my opinion.
So you're saying the phase 2, the green?
It'd be 1A.
I would like to see that first.
So far, I think that should be first thing instead of the last thing.
I mean, that's just
which it could be if again it's not adding animals, so it's not adding to the difficulty of trying to care for them.
I mean, of course, then we'd have to go to the building because, like you said, right now we got barrels stuck in every corner.
Okay.
For food and space, we don't have the space in the building. More freezers, more coolers, all that stuff.
So when you put an aquarium in a building like this, I mean, there's as big as that exhibit little dot is, or drawing is, there's that same amount of space is necessary for the life support to make sure everything works for the aquarium. How big of an aquarium is big enough? I mean, we've had conversations at the design charrette and at the task force. Wouldn't it be great to have a 20,000-gallon tank? I mean, wouldn't that be wonderful? Wouldn't it be nice to have a tank that had a glass face on it that was as big as this end wall, so you could see the big sturgeons floating around in there, and you can get the fish that you can't even do with your arm span. How big is big enough? Because we've heard a lot of different opinions on that, and I guess I'd like to get some feedback from this group as to how big do you think is adequate.
We got no idea. We got no idea what. If you're waiting for us to come up with an idea.
Do you know how many gallons the otter exhibit is as far as the
8,000.
That's kind of underwater?
8,000.
I mean, I think that's suitable. I was going to say something similar to that would.
Would that fit?
Something you can take a swim in, Fitz?
Exactly.
I mean, 8,000 gallon is enough to put some pretty good sized fish in. I mean, you're not going to put the biggest sturgeon in an 8,000 gallon, but you can do a pretty nice size exhibit, something of that size. We're just trying to get an idea of how big is big enough. I mean, to somebody, an aquarium might be 100 gallons, which is 5 times what you see in your house, to 50,000 gallons, which is what you see when you go down to the Shed Aquarium down in Chicago. I mean, there's a huge range, and we just need to right-size this for the experience here.
What size would fit into that building? That's the key.
8,000 would probably fit.
I think we should have a small overhead one, so when you walk in, you can see them.
You can do an acrylic
That'll
walkthrough.
save space. And
Yeah, those are
Good
cool.
acrylic walkthrough.
I love those.
You better come up some more money, Jenny.
Yeah.
I'm working on it.
If we did that as phase 1, just for example, and we put an aquarium in there, would that still just be the normal season of the zoo, or would something like that potentially be year round? Just that part of the building. I'm just asking. I have no idea. Or would it just be normal zoo season and the aquarium? What do you do with that in the winter then, or how does that work?
Well, you got to take care of it year round, obviously.
Okay.
And I would think if you have rental space and you have classrooms and school is in winter as well, and you're going to have probably some different grade levels come in and use those classrooms, it would probably be on somewhat of a year-round basis.
Okay.
But what the hours are, I don't know.
No, but I mean, so that area of the zoo, that building, potentially would be a full year. Okay.
I think it would make sense to consider that.
Just for example, what we do at the Children's Amusement Center, we're not open weekdays in May. But a lot of the schools are obviously still in sessions for May, so we do kind of like appointment type thing. They call for a reservation, we make sure staff's there to accommodate them, but we're not, and I'm just throwing this out what we do on the other side. We're not open dating, but we accommodate people to be there if they need it. And in a zoo, we have a keeper there all day, every day, regardless. So.
Okay. When you'd asked, Vic asked a question about staffing too in the long run. A lot of that's going to be determined with the amount of exhibits that are there based on AZA guidelines of how many keepers it takes per area to take on in the long run. So this long-term plan, yes, it's going to take additional staffing. If this was to operate at full capacity, the number I couldn't tell you offhand, but it does take more people to do that in the long run. One thing I do want to add in regards to phase one, if a map is out there, infrastructure, utility extensions, all that needs to be in place before anything else goes above it. That's for long term, because there's a lot of things that need to be changed down there in the long term to be sufficient. So that might be an extended phase one project first before any structure happens, because that's going to be a big portion of that right now.
Craig, you have anything else? Otherwise,
I want to get back to the aquarium. Why don't you give us 3 options? You know what I mean, size, money-wise, that thing. Is that? I mean, obviously we don't. Not a big group of aquarium people. Yeah, I think we need a little help.
We can do different experiences that are possible.
Yeah, thank you.
Put the cost together. So you'd like, my understanding, you'd like to see what each phase costs then? Okay, so you can get an individual component and then an overall. And we'll do it with this being number 1, and then we would just kind of go back to the original order, but this being the first rather than the last piece. What about parking? What's the feeling about parking? I mean, we really need some direction on what do you feel is reasonable, and what do you feel is it possible to take the parking from one side of the road and putting it on the other side of the road so that this can become more active space for the domestic animal portion of the zoo? It would make, believe it or not, it would make a huge difference. There's 45 feet right here that's being used as a parking lot right now.
Where do the tennis courts start and end?
That's a lot of parking just to say it is. No.
So,
that accommodates that whole side over there.
So right here is where I'm talking about adding parking. Here's the tennis courts.
Okay.
So I'm saying take that and put it right on the street, just like you're doing in other parts where you don't need.
Do we have ample parking down there now?
Not on event days.
No.
I would say
Day to day.
Day to day,
Yeah.
the summer, that lot is always full.
Okay.
So always throughout the whole day. Then they go to overflow, parking on the road, or they park over by the playground and walk across. But any given day of the summer, you drive through the park, that lot and that lot will be maxed out, for sure.
So these are really busy, and I guess our thought is that we would also encourage, instead of parallel parking on the rest of that, we would encourage some more basin parking to get an additional quantity. I mean, I think as you do improvements to this zoo, it's going to become more of a destination. You're going to have higher usage. It's not going to be just neighborhood people coming to see it. But if you're in town for another event or a conference, or you're over at EAA for the fly-in and you decide to come on over to see the zoo because you heard about this new cool aquarium they got, you're going to drive your car and come on over here. So we want to make sure that everything is planned out right, not just the exhibits or the excitement within. You got to deal with all the rest of it too.
Squeeze in every parking place.
Yeah. Looks like they'd be losing quite a few trees along that road.
Would that be
Yeah.
pull-in parking, or what kind of parking?
It would be 90-degree parking, just like what you have at the
Like over
playground.
there.
If you're doing that at the playground, someone told me there's a reason. I don't see why you would have to have 45 feet. You could only come in 20 feet and just do parking.
All backing out into traffic.
Backing out into traffic.
Are you saying you want that space to expand the park? Is that what you're saying? So
We're saying that you would have a much easier time creating the domestic animal building and pens. You'd be able to create a better experience if this parking were part of inside the fence.
How many square feet are you at? Just give me a ballpark. I'm not going to hold you to
This
it.
is 200 feet by 40 feet, so
So you take the whole parking on that side?
Could we?
maybe except for the accessible parking.
Yeah, could we keep some a few handicap spots there, so they don't have to cross the street? Okay.
Why would you want to take any parking away from it at all?
We're not. We're moving it across the street.
We want to increase it, not.
I'd put some across. Yeah, I know. So
But that
leave
way
it
you
there and
can't-
put some across the
But
street.
they want to
They want to
expand
expand that area.
the farm
We think
animals.
we think this space is critical for these exhibits. We're showing it without it because we want to show it to you in case you
Right.
say no. I mean, you can do something, it's just not going to be quite as big of a wow.
But you are very restricted there with the width.
Yeah, you are.
The width
Yeah.
gives you a lot of restriction.
We've taken away some of the pond.
Right.
This is a retention pond, so whatever we take away here, we got to make up for wherever we're carving out. So we're replacing it one for one, but we would certainly like to be able to not have to maybe take all of that.
Okay.
So is anybody opposed to doing that? To looking at expanding across?
I think the only guy is the white-headed guy at the end of the table.
What phase is that? None of us are going to be alive when that phase is.
Speak for yourself.
We aren't.
I don't smoke.
No, we aren't. So if you're going to take the parking away,
This parking, in my mind, needs to come online when we build this building, because that's when a lot of the,
I don't have a problem with putting parking on this side of the road. I just can't see eliminating any of it. You said you're going to need more parking, so you're just eliminating it.
well, you've added.
Why eliminate parking if you need some more?
We're adding more over here. So where the playground is, we're actually expanding that basin parking right up all along here. We do want to increase it, but we're going to have to do it where we can. So we were planning on increasing it there as well.
So real, okay, if you keep so what did you say, there's like 45 spots, how many spots are there?
No, I think there's like 20.
20, oh, okay.
23.
23, you're going to keep some,
I said there's not that many.
okay.
18?
No, I mean, it's 40.
Okay, yeah, I don't know where you got that number.
45
But
feet.
so you're going to have like 20 some or whatever, 20 or 20 some. But now you'd keep a few handicap spots and then, yeah, you go across the street. So essentially you're going to, yeah,
This would be a one-for-one.
One for one.
The expansion would be over here.
over there, okay.
I mean, we could put parking, I mean, this is all, I mean, you could start parking down here if you wanted.
You could do that too.
And they do park there
Yeah.
parallel right now.
I mean, this is the one-way loop, right? So having face-in parking with a one-way is probably easier for backing in and out than having it be on a two-way street, which I think is. So that's just something we want to know if that's a problem.
What if you square off that space, the tennis court, what would you gain there?
If you squared off the space.
To the tennis court, yep.
Did all of this
Yeah.
for parking?
Yeah.
I don't know how much you could get in there, but being a triangle, it's not real efficient.
Right.
Not sure that
Yeah,
would do you a
it's-
whole lot of good.
Probably take a lot of
I think the
space.
angled parking is probably the best solution there.
Is there anybody else against parking? I don't know.
He's got to bring something back anyway. That's
Well, yeah, we know that.
So I guess, is there anything about this idea that doesn't make sense to you? Is there something that you don't like or something you want to see me add? Because the next time I want to come back to you, I want to say, will you approve this? So
Well,
I want your input.
It sounds like that parking space is very important to you.
I think it's important to the experience of the
Okay,
building.
okay.
Still talking
very-
about a walkthrough barn?
Yes.
So that-
It is still a
Okay.
walkthrough, but it would
Okay.
make it easier for you for the keeper side.
Right.
Staff?
So let's show the concept where the parking is moved across the street, and that would be further down the road facing.
Thank you all. So next meeting, hopefully we'll be back and we'll show you the phasing, we'll show you the cost that goes with the phases, and we'll show this revised and ask for you to give us a thumbs up.
How much work do you want to put into those numbers, Megan? I mean, by the time we do this, the numbers aren't going to matter. Oh, Rick wanted to know that? Yeah, sorry.
I just wanted to, some ballpark figures of the phasing, how much it's going to
It'll be in
cost.
today's dollars.
Right, I'm just saying, I don't know if we need you to kill yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, because realistically, like Terry said, we'll all be dead by the time.
I don't think they need to be, but I do think it may end up changing the priority of basing based on.
Right.
Because
It'll show you some.
It's all going to be privately funded. I don't think it's funded through the.
What,
capital
the city
improvement.
isn't gonna come up with 10 million?
You didn't bring your check?
11.
Here's a shocker.
11 million.
Now we got that as 12.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you for your patience.
All right, Trace, wake up.
Okay, I promise.
You better get going because it's after 9 o'clock and we said
Well, I
we
thought
were
you'd
gonna
read.
be out of here.
I thought you'd read what it was, so the
I don't have to
public
read it.
know. The next item on the agenda is to discuss or recommend the 2015 Lakeshore Municipal Golf Course fees, and Trace Gardner provided some information in your packet. So we'd be looking for a recommendation to approve these fees for next year. So Trace, you want to go through the ones, and then if there's any questions, you can address those.
Yeah, this will be pretty quick, I think. As you saw last year by the asterisks, those are the ones we tweaked last year. So you see we tweaked a fair amount of things last year. I kind of looked at the other areas that haven't been touched a little bit. One was our full rate that we charge on weekends and then various other times during the week. Just a very slight increase, but again, trying to stay in the same line we are in the city with the other golf courses. Traditionally, we kind of fall in in the middle when it comes to pricing. We're not the most expensive, we're not the least expensive, and this kind of keeps us in that same ballpark. It also helps us raise a little more revenue where we need to, as we know the expenses keep going up in the golf business. As you go lower, the Twilight, just to match the other $12 rate that we charged earlier, pretty small. And then the 20 rounds we offer, it's kind of like a discount card, and it's a little bit more of a jump, but that kind of reflects our coupon rates that we put out there in the various publications, and we like that rate there per round to equal our coupon rates, so they're equal to each other. Like I said, it's not a lot of change next year is what I'm proposing.
I just want to make sure we're not, causing hardships on private golf courses, competing with.
There's 2 in the area, perhaps a little bit more than us. There's 2 in the area less than us. So we're right in the middle of the 5 courses right here.
Like the ones that are more than us, but how much are we talking about?
I mean, West Haven is probably the one that charges most, and I believe they're about $27.50 for 18 holes. We're within $1.50 of Lake Breeze. So I mean, we're right.
To the high side or to the low side?
Lake Breeze, we're just slightly lower at this peak rate. I mean, everybody has some various different rates, so it's hard to always. But when you look at the peak rate on the weekends primarily, that's the rate that we're looking at, just tweaking a little here.
Hey, Trace, based on numbers this year for use, do you have any idea kind of what the total additional revenue would be?
This would be approximately $4,000, maybe $5,000, give or depends on a few other things. But that's what I would estimate in that ballpark. If you look at our traditional rounds played at this rate.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Make a motion, we accept.
Second.
I didn't know she called the roll on these. Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Garens.
Aye.
Ogleski.
Aye.
Michelson.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Rule. Chisler.
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
And Wooler.
Aye.
All approved.
Okay.
I have no
Thank you.
report. Sorry.
Oh, I'm just thanking your bro there.
I have nothing further to report.
One last, how were our golf course revenues this year?
That'll be coming up when.
They'll be coming up.
Okay, sorry.
We're still open. We're open until
The snow flies.
Until the snow flies.
Won't be long.
You don't have anything?
I don't have another report. I've been working on
Chad, you haven't
restoration.
got anything, right?
What's that?
You haven't really got anything, right?
I do. If you there's anything to hear, if not, that's fine.
Nice try, Terry.
No.
Hey, we're here to, we got to 11:30 to break our record.
No, we don't.
Yeah, we got
no, we don't. We walked out of
here
here at 9 o'clock already.
I'll be quick then, Terry. Does that sound good? Just a couple of things, project updates wise, I'd encourage you to out take a look at. I think very proud of our staff and how well they've done with the Great Neighbor Works projects, primarily down at Stevens Park. We have completed that in its entirety now, in compliance also with some areas with the master plan. I think the access walks around the playground and things of that nature turned out very well, and definitely encourage people to take a look at those along with Tech Miller Park. Also at Bauman Park, we had the playground installed. The fences were up for the ball field. Now we have some diamond work to do. Also completed the accessible passes around that playground, which turned out very nice. When you see members of our staff, definitely compliment them on their work done on there. They did an excellent job out there. Right now, we're currently working on the approaches around Menominee Field number 1 for improving the aesthetics and use zone around there for people, for spectators and players, and reduce our maintenance costs, long term for weed control, things of that nature.
Chad, on that, are we getting some money from the rec department on diamond improvement money? Does some of that flow to us then on that diamond improvement fee?
Yes, we do work with the softball commission on
Okay.
their fields for doing that. Absolutely.
They look great, seriously.
Super. Operationally wise, I think down at the zoo we've had some changes here with one working with the task force on the development for here. We do have 4 wolves now in our exhibit. If you have them down, we are leaving the zoo open. Stacy's opening the gates daily down there through the fall. Roughly between 9 and 2 we're open. Not this week due to Zulaween setup, but they're doing well. We've received these from the Wildlife Science Center out of Forest Lake, Minnesota, and they are very active. They do have a downtime, I would say early afternoon from noon till about 2, but in the morning they're very active. But definitely come down and take a look at them. There are 4 siblings, 2 females, 2 males. They are 11 years old, and I'd hate to tell you their age right now because I swear if you saw them, they don't look like they're 11 years old. The one male that we do have, he's 130 pounds. These are the western subspecies of the gray wolves. They're very, very neat to see. So also in part to that, all the exhibit renovations we've done there, we're building an additional den along with concreting and embedding rock into a pond to make that easier to maintain and done with, all done in-house. Turned out very well. So definitely take a look at that when you have a chance. Navigation season ended on the 5th, so we are done managing, going through all the boat launches and trying to prep those and getting an inventory for what we need to do for repairs this coming winter. One thing, too, since it's televised, I am sitting on as a liaison with the city for the County Deer Advisory Council. That's out, part of Winnebago County. So if people have concerns about our urban development and how we're managing our wildlife plan in regards to urban deer, let me know, and I can help share that information with the committee. So that's all I have for now.
I just have one comment. The playground perimeter walks look really nice on the playgrounds. I mean, they really do it. They're a nice touch. They really finish it off, and parents actually probably like it because little kids, it gives them a perimeter of okay, you need to stay in this area too. But I mean, it really finishes them off nice. They really look good.
Great.
Now we come to the.
I'll keep it brief. We finished up the end of the season for the Children's Amusement Center and technically the zoo the last Sunday in September, so we'll be getting all those things cleaned up and shut down in numbers for the season and things. Like Chad said, we will be having the zoo open for a while yet here, and it has been busy. The weather's been really nice, so there's been a lot of people down there that have heard the wolves are there, so they want to come see them. So there's been a lot of kiddos and moms down there and dads checking things out, so that's been nice. This coming weekend is our big Zulaween Boo on Saturday and Sunday. So if anyone, you don't know if anyone who wants to volunteer or get involved, 2 days we have a full lineup of contests, crafts, magic people, trick-or-treating. We have 48 booths on Saturday, which is a ton. I think one other year in 12 years we've had that many. So we have 48 trick-or-treat stations on Saturday. We have a lot of new involvement this year, whether it be monetary donations or in-kind trick-or-treat stations. So we're excited. Bounce houses, all kinds of things, both days from 11 to 3. So if anyone wants to get involved or help out, feel free to give us a call. And otherwise, I'll be working on a lot more stuff after we get through Zulaween as far as numbers go and reports for the end of the year stuff. So I think that's it for now.
Thank you.
And I don't have a lot of updates. I just want to inform everybody we're currently in the forestry division working on the stump removals, trying to get those all squared away. Going to begin planting the memorial trees next week. The crew has also been working on cleaning up the roundabouts and the flower beds here within the last couple weeks. Going to working with planning department, coordinating neighborhood tree planting project here that should be getting started pretty soon. So otherwise, just doing a lot of fall cleanup work and trying to hopefully we'll get late winter so we can get a lot of this stuff squared away. That's about it for me.
Thank you. Mr. Dobish.
Yes, sir. Well, I've got a few projects that I had promised a year and a half ago to finish. The range T expansion and the irrigation for it is almost completed. It's just waiting seeding now. The number 18 bunker, one that we talked about removing, has been removed, and we'll be seeding that this week if it doesn't rain every day. Overall, our condition is very good, I think. I think all our customers are pretty happy, and we're staying on top of the leaf mulching and removal. We're also looking at and talking with our regular golfers about the removal of other bunkers down the road. We'll see what we can afford to do as time goes on. We're anticipating our HVAC upgrade pending council approval this week. Hopefully that goes forward. And my crew and I have finally caught up with the irrigation repair just in time to cut it off and close that down. It seems all we do is repair irrigation and mow grass this year, as Bill attested to with our earlier discussion. All we had was growth. We never had a lull, which was reflected out in Menominee Park. With
the lawns without irrigation never got yellow this year. I mean, it's the first time I can remember where my lawn never ever got yellow.
Precisely, it didn't end all year long. So it's been a long year, thanks to our dedicated crew. Though I think we had it in good shape all year long, but I don't wish for another of these. We can't get to the things that we had anticipated as far as special projects and repairs. It wasn't a normal year at all. Last weekend, was it? We had the Big Cup tournament. Chase can elaborate on a little bit if he wants to. I think it was a pretty big success.
Yeah, I'll make this quick, but I know there's always questions on the Big Cups out there. And we had our first Big Cup tournament 2 Saturdays ago, and we had 37 two-man teams out there, so 74 guys out there on a Saturday morning for the first one. It was a great turnout. I was hoping for 20 to 30 teams. So to get 37, everybody had a great time, and I'm sure they'll go back and tell more people. And I don't see, my goal next year will be at least 50 teams for that. I mean, I don't see why we won't be able to get there. I know even the guys who played that morning earlier had a good time. I don't know if Vic played that morning or not, but those guys, they all played the Big Cups and they had a good time as well. So it's just good to see them get used and just gets it started, and we'll still continue to have them next year for primarily for the junior beginners still. But it was good to see a good event like that for the first time take off. I know there was a question on financial.
Just a ballpark.
I think we're up about 4%, if I remember right, off the top of my head. Last year we closed a little earlier in some previous years. Hopefully we can stay open a little bit later. Now we're just we're always weather dependent, but especially this time of year. So I think last year was about the middle of November, and we'll stay open until Mother Nature tells us we have to close. So
that's all I've got.
Okay. All right, it was a long one.
Motion to adjourn.
Want to leave already? All in favor, say aye.
This is probably the longest since